Hisami, Professor Chris Haroon. Welcome to Economics Management and Strategy Semester Number 3 class, Number 1.
We're going to do something radically different today. I'm always trying to push the goalpost out and teach in different ways. So what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you a class based on Nintendo's best practices and why Nintendo's been an incredibly successful company for over 100 years. Yes, Nintendo is over 100 years old. It's the oldest tech company on the planet. They're based in Kyoto, Japan. This will be a lot of fun. All right, so I'll go to new game here. And here we go. I have to rescue the princess. So I'll go over here to the very first level. So this is EMS 3-1-1. Okay. So what I'll do is, as I go through this, I'll talk about what has made Nintendo so successful over the past 100 plus years. It's an incredible company that makes games right from their heart. This really is art, right? Nintendo they're full of artists, much better than I'll ever be, please. But this is so much fun making this. And so they've been around for over 100 years, and they've reinvented themselves over and over and over again. It really is amazing. Okay, so make sure you have your workbook open today in either Google Docs, PDF, or Microsoft Word format. Okay, and we are now 68% of the way through the MBA degree program. I gotta get this guy first before we move on. Okay, there we go. Good. All right, cool. Let's do this, man. This is gonna be fun. This is gonna be fun. So one of the most important things about Nintendo is they've actually targeted a massive market. Okay, so the total addressable market they have is absolutely massive. I just died, and I got to keep it real. And I made this level, and I suck at this game. But anyway, so they have a massive total addressable market, and all of their games, for the most part, are rated PG, and so they've been able to attract a massive fan base over the years. You know, people grew up playing Mario, and they can play it with their kids as well. Okay, so again, make sure you have today's workbook open in either Google Docs, Microsoft Word, or PDF format. I will not die this time, I promise you, but I will get my sweet revenge here. Okay, there we go. Okay, great. Yeah, and so everything they do targets a massive market. And the same thing with all of you as well. With your business plans, what I want you to do is always think of a massive total addressable market. Because if you start a company that's in a very tiny total addressable market, and in the extremely unlikely event that you get 100% market share, it doesn't really matter, because it's a big slice of a tiny pie. And there's a lot of great venture capital firms like Kleiner Perkins and many others here in the Bay Area. And what they do is they usually don't invest in any companies that don't have at least a $20 billion total addressable market. And the reason is because if that company is successful, and most venture capital backed companies go to zero, but if that company is successful, and it's in a $20 billion market, then what they can do is, if they get 5% share, that's a $1 billion company. Now, when we look at total addressable market, what we do is we look at the size of the revenue for every major company in that market. So, for example, if you look at the enterprise software market and you add up the annual revenue for these great, giant, successful enterprise software companies like SAP, Oracle, Salesforce.com, and many others. If you add up the revenue that they all make in a given year, that's the size of the total addressable market. And so when you're thinking about companies to invest in or companies to start, what I want you to do is always be cognizant of how big the market is. And you can always do a search for total addressable market consulting reports. Companies like Gartner, Forrester, McKinsey, Accenture, Boston Consulting Group, and many others. They'll create these reports and they'll give away parts of it for free because it's free PR for them. And they'll talk about the size of a market. If you can't find details on the size of a market, let me move around a bit so Mario doesn't fall asleep here. Then what you can do is just search for the largest 20 or 30 companies in a given sector and add up the revenue for those companies. And that's a close enough proxy for the total addressable market, because most markets are dominated by, just a handful of companies, especially in the tech sector. And if you're doing research and you can't find any details about the total addressable market because the company and the market is so new, the total addressable market does exist. You're just not thinking about it the right way. I say it with love in my heart, as always. So, for example, with Google, when Larry and Sergey started the company in late '98, when they were talking about the size of the total addressable market to Andy Bechtolsheim, who's a friend of mine, and he was the first notable investor in Google. But what they did was they articulated that, look, the search market's not big now. However, the newspaper advertising and the radio advertising and the television advertising markets are ginormous, as my kids would say. And so that's the size of the total addressable market they're going to disrupt. In terms of where to address the TAM in your business plan, all you have to do is just go and do a search and then search for TAM. Okay. And we'll see here it comes up a number of times. So it comes up here in milestones, past milestones achieved. It also comes up here in future milestones, what you want to achieve TAM-wise. And this is important to document in your business plan because it helps the reader understand how much revenue you might generate in the future. So if you calculate the size of the total addressable market in the future, and then you come up with logic that explains what percent of the TAM you're going to get, then it can help your reader understand your financial model a little bit more. And it's a good sanity check too, because sometimes we get carried away when we make these financial models to the extent that we grow revenue so big, it ends up being larger than the total addressable market. So it's a good, it's a good sanity check, kind of like the Senate is a sober second look, so to speak. Okay. And then by the way I found a TAM here, and this is just one of the business plan templates, is you can go and do a Control F if you want to find it. But what I like to do is I actually don't like to do it that way. I like to hit Command Shift H for Advanced Find, or what you can do is just within Find, you can click here and then say, hey, give me replace. Okay. An advanced file will come here. And then I like to type in TAM right here. And so here's all the instances of TAM, okay? And another way to look at it is once you find out what the tags are here for TAM, so for example, when I click here and I see this, final business plan, customer market, TAM, this thing, what we're gonna capture in 5 years, you copy it, okay? And then what you can do is you can go to the Excel file and then go up here and make sure you can see this. If you can't see this, go to View, and then go to Formula Bar and make sure it's on. Okay. So what's in my clipboard, I paste it and watch what happens. So it shows me right here, okay, where the TAM comes from. And you can find out other places where TAM is as well by doing a search within this document. Okay. Then what I also have here is the presentation. And I have just a sample template one open. And we can search in here for the word TAM, T-A-M, to see where it is here. And it's here on slide summary, which is total addressable market, your TAM summary. So as you watch this case study video game lesson on Nintendo, in terms of the so what test, remember the Miles Davis so what test, I want you to think about, well, this is how Nintendo approached the total addressable market or this situation. And I'll come on every now and then with my Donkey Kong t-shirt. I love Donkey Kong. It's in these little videos, I'll tell you exactly where to go in your business plan, the Excel dashboard, as well as the Word documents for your business plan, so that you can think about how to potentially apply or think about how to apply some of the best practices Nintendo has to your business model. Thanks. Okay, so let's move on here. Please don't screw this up, Chris. Okay, good. So we talked about the total addressable market. So it's massive, massive for Nintendo. It's huge and always has been. And what Nintendo does extraordinarily well is they repurpose their content a lot. Okay, and so what that means is if they make a Mario game on the 8-bit or 16-bit console, for example, back in the 80s, they can repurpose those Mario games in future consoles. And it's a very, very high margin business for them to repurpose all this content. Let me run faster so I don't fall through the clouds. So repurposing content is one of the many reasons, and I'm going to pause this here so Mario doesn't die, but it's one of the many reasons why they've been very successful over the years. And most video game companies don't do this. And we're going to talk about the competitive environment in a lot of detail as well when it comes to all the big competitors for Nintendo. But they take a lot of their older content and they put it on new platforms. And the fixed overhead is done. And fixed overhead means how much money you spent creating something. And so it's all incremental later. Right, so they can distribute these products over and over again on different platforms and monetize older content, and it's brilliant. And when you create your social media presence, and I want you to always think of yourself as a thought leader, but when you do that, what I want you to do is to work smarter and not harder. How do you do that? By repurposing content. So, for example, with my weekly calls, which I do on Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. San Francisco time, what I do is I speak for 3 hours, and then I have a team that will create vlogs based on some of the questions that I answer, and those vlogs will be repurposed, kind of like how Nintendo does with older Mario games. They'll be repurposed and created as YouTube vlogs every single day at 9 a.m. my time. And I'm always consistent, and you have to be consistent when you do this. Another way that I repurpose content, and we'll talk a lot more about how to create great YouTube content, as well as how to create an incredible web presence for you and social media in future sales, marketing, communication classes. But what I also do is I have that content that I create on Thursdays repurposed, not just through YouTube vlogs, but also on LinkedIn, as well as shorter video vlogs, which are disseminated or distributed through LinkedIn, as well as Twitter, and also Instagram. So if you really want to scale your business, and you get free advertising, by the way, using YouTube, because YouTube is the biggest search engine, or the second biggest search engine in the world, and YouTube is the biggest gold rush in history, and the only gold rush that costs you nothing to make the product, and the only gold rush where you can get access to billions of potential customers for free. So I want you to use a page from Nintendo's playbook, which has worked for decades, which is repurpose your content. Okay, write once, read many. Okay, work smarter and not harder. And that's what Nintendo has done for decades and decades and decades, and nobody does it as well as they do. In terms of where to mention your social media strategy in your business plan, so the easiest way to do this is to go start with a Word document always, and just do a search for social media, for example. And it comes up a couple of times under marketing strategy. And so it's easier to navigate the Word document than the Excel document. And so I recommend that you start by searching for the keyword here. Then when you find it, you copy here this string, okay, for social media strategy. Then what you do is you go over to, here to Excel, and you just go here and you enter that string, and then boom, it'll pop up where it's mentioned here, okay? It comes up here under, it says step 9 online marketing strategy page. And then you can link back to where you entered it in somewhere else by searching for your social media strategy up here. Now, you'll notice that nothing appears here with social media strategy in your 10 slides. because that's kind of a thing you talk about in a second meeting, or if they have questions about it. It's not something you mention right away when you talk about your business plan, unless the person that you're meeting with wants to, for some reason, go into a lot of detail on your what your go-to-market strategy is, or how you're going to sell your product, or how you're going to get to market. Usually, you don't talk about marketing and advertising too much in the first meeting, which is why it's not included in the 10 slides here. Okay, so we've talked about repurposing of content. So next up, and it's hard to focus, man. I'm trying to get that guy there. Okay. Next up, another reason. No, don't die, Chris. Oh my God, this is killing me. Okay, well, I guess I'll have to wing it and walk through it as I explain in more detail. But I've got a shortcut. To get there. So Nintendo is very successful also because they're very, very paranoid. And I humbly believe, and I've talked about this before a lot, that only the paranoid survive. And the late, great Andy Grove talked about this in his seminal book, which you guys should all read, called it's called Only the Paranoid Survive. And what Dr. Grove did in that book is he talks about a great framework that you can use, which is the Porter 5 Forces framework. But he adds one more element to that. And that other element is a strategic inflection point. And so when I look back upon my business education, I after each class, I think to myself, what's one framework that I've learned that I can apply in the real world? And that's the basis for modern consulting. And so we'll talk about a lot of frameworks here within a couple of these levels very, very soon. But the strategic inflection point for, whoops, I almost died again. The strategic inflection point that that Dr. Grove talked about in his book, Only the Paranoid Survive, is when these amazing Japanese companies, speaking of Japanese companies, in the early 80s, came into the market and competed aggressively with Nintendo, or with Intel. And what happened was Intel was predominantly a semiconductor company. They made RAM, random access memory, which basically means chips that go in your computer to allow your computer to have more programs open at the same time. Then a lot of great Japanese companies entered the market in the early 80s. And what they did was, and a lot of great Japanese firms at the time, they focus on market share and not profit margins. Very long-term focus, which is smart. And Nintendo's just like that too. And so what happened was companies like Hitachi and many other Japanese greats forced Intel to get out of that market. And the strategic inflection point for Intel at that point in time was that event. And so they reinvented themselves, right? With crisis comes opportunity, and they entered the processor market, which is the brain of the computer. And so in hindsight, being paranoid really, really helped Dr. Grove and Intel, and certainly has helped Nintendo over the years. Okay, speaking of paranoia, they're incredibly paranoid, okay? And so those two bullets there represent the tectonic shift of Sony and Microsoft entering the industry to compete aggressively with Nintendo in the 90s and the early 2000s, respectively. And I remember when I met with the CFO of Nintendo back in January of 2006, when I was in Tokyo. They're based in Kyoto, but he was there at the time. And I had a translator there as well. And I worked at a great big hedge fund at the time called Citadel. And I invest a lot in companies in the video game space and software space globally. But I remember sitting down with the CFO of Nintendo. And I remember asking him, I don't understand why you always have at least $8 billion in cash on your balance sheet. Why don't you do something with it? And of course, I said it very politely, respectfully. I said, why don't you do something with it, like buy back shares or do a special one-time cash dividend? And what the CFO told me at the time was we have a very conservative culture. And that's one of the reasons we've been in business more than 100 years. And we've got these two massive competitors with much bigger, at the time, balance sheets and cash balances than we have, Microsoft and Sony. And so Microsoft and Sony entered the market, and we're going to talk a lot more about the competitive environment when it came to Nintendo and how they beat the competition in the next topic today, which is EMS 3-1-2. But what Nintendo did was, given the fact that they'd never had the same war chest of cash that, say, a Microsoft had, was they figured that we have to be paranoid and we can't compete based on graphics quality, because you've got a massive competitor in Microsoft, for example, that doesn't give a damn if they lose a fortune in the video game market. They didn't care. They didn't care. And that was the strategic inflection point for Nintendo. They had to reinvent themselves and focus on gameplay and not so much graphics. Because what Microsoft did was, when they entered the market in 2001 with the Xbox, what Microsoft realized was they were paranoid. Only the paranoid survive. And Bill Gates used to always say, even when he was CEO of Microsoft in 2001, right before he stepped aside to be chief software architect, he would always say, we are 1.5 years away from bankruptcy at Microsoft. Bill Gates would always say that. And obviously we knew that was never the case. But that's how these successful companies, become successful for decades and decades and decades. They're very paranoid. And one of the reasons that Microsoft entered the video game market was because they were terrified that Sony, with the success of the PlayStation 1 and 2 at that point in time, and then of course 3, 4, and 5 more recently, they were paranoid that in the 1990s, Sony could become the biggest competitive threat to Microsoft. Because what Microsoft thought was, well, Sony with their PlayStation products, they put them in your living room, and all of a sudden, your television becomes your computer monitor, and your computer is now your PlayStation. And so Microsoft was paranoid that they would lose market share in the long run to people using computers in their living rooms. Now, that hasn't really happened as much as Bill Gates thought at the time. And so that's one of the reasons why Microsoft entered the market in 2001. And they didn't give a damn if they lost billions of dollars. And they did initially. They lost a ton. And so what do you do if you're Nintendo? How do you compete against a company that's got really, really deep pockets? Well, what you do is you don't try to outspend them. You don't try to out-innovate with technology that's very expensive and sell hardware as a loss leader. What you do is you focus on games and new ways to play and new controllers as well. Over here, you can see there's a couple of controllers. One is from Sony, and the other here is from Microsoft. And Sony and Microsoft haven't really changed their controllers over the years. There hasn't been much innovation there. And they've competed on graphics quality. Their machines are workhorses, right? They're high-end supercomputers, basically. They're gaming consoles. And so Nintendo has had to basically create and reinvent themselves over and over and over again with cheaper hardware, and also not compete based on processing power. And as you can see here, I have a lot of these. These are from the Patent Office, United States Patent Office, for different controllers that they've made over the years. And they keep reinventing themselves, and they keep competing based on innovative, cheaper hardware platforms. That's how you survive. And only the paranoid survive when you're dealing with companies with, especially Microsoft, less so Sony these days, but when you're dealing with companies that have a war chest of cash that are just competing based on graphics quality. And so only the paranoid survive. And I certainly believe that when it comes to Nintendo. In terms of documenting paranoia in your business plan, the best way to think about it is to do a search in the Word document here on the word risk, because I want you to be able to identify every risk there is in your business model and have that paranoid mentality to the extent that you can address it in an investor meeting, or at least in your business plan. So let's do that. Let's search for the word risk. And it comes up a bunch of times here, 17 times. So the main place where it comes up is in a section called Other Miscellaneous Risks. Okay. And so there's something called game theory, which means trying to think like other people are going to think and kind of front run them, kind of like when you're playing chess, think a couple moves ahead. So from a game theory perspective with yourself, you can look at risks here and just try to think about what risks might potentially occur. And so I put a number of them here, actually. I put future technology development risks, future competition risk, macroeconomic risks, as well as disaster recovery risks, and then other potential risks as well. And also, what is the most misunderstood aspect of your business model? Risk. So the place to put this in, and you can keep searching for the word risk here, and I think I've covered all of them. The reason why these occur twice is because they're in the table of contents as well. Now, what you can do is then you can go directly over to Excel and search for those fields. So for example, this field here, again, you just copy, and then within Excel, you go up here and you do risk, do a search, boom, it appears right there. Okay. And I'm not going to talk about it with respect to the PowerPoint presentation because the PowerPoint presentation is just 10 slides. And it's just a high level introduction to your business plan, your business model. And the purpose is to get a second meeting and hopefully investors. Yeah. But you can cover the paranoia section by searching for the word risk within Microsoft Word. Thanks. Okay. Back to the game here. Okay. We go here. Please work. Go back. Okay, great. All right. It's hard to focus at the same time, but screw it. Let's do it, as Sir Richard Branson said. I'm going to have fun doing this. All right. So they had to reinvent themselves over and over and over again in order to compete against others with bigger balance sheets, etc. And so only the paranoid survive. Next thing I want to talk about is platforms. Look at that. Platforms. So the most successful business models in history are all platform-based solutions. And so Nintendo understands that you have to have a platform and you have to own the road. And if you own the road, you can charge the cars and the toll booths as well. And so what Nintendo has done for decades and decades and decades is they've created their own roads, okay? Their own roads. And then the video game companies that pump out software on their consoles, those are the cars, so to speak. And so, yes, Nintendo creates amazing content. They certainly do. They have all this great IP here. Think Walt Disney, but video game based. But Nintendo also understands that if you own the road, you can make a fortune by other companies creating software for your platform. In fact, me creating these 3 levels for today's really fun lecture, I'm actually using this platform. And the best way to think about platforms is not just from a basic, put your software on Nintendo's platform, but I want you to start thinking about platforms within platforms. So with Super Mario 2, for example, that's another platform within a platform. And so as you create your business models, what I want you to do is I want you to think about not only creating your own platform, but if you put your product or your service on another platform like Amazon Web Services, you have a platform within a platform. And I know that sounds a little bit nebulous or a little bit out there to explain, but for me, for example, my platform is this MBA degree program, which is sitting on the Teachables platform, which is the e-commerce engine that powers all the courses that I put online. And so each one of my courses and my MBA degree program is a platform within a platform that I can build upon. That's how I want you to think about platforms as well. Okay, when you think about writing your business plan, etc. And so Nintendo has been the poster child for creating platforms and mini platforms over the years. It's not just about content. It's about owning the roads. And we'll talk about content in more detail very, very soon. With Nintendo, they've got tons of great content that they've repurposed over many, many decades. But with other companies, they're skating on thin ice at times. Like, for example, the Xbox One, when it came out in 2001, the only proprietary content they really had was Halo. And without Halo, Microsoft's consoles would not exist today. Yeah, so you got to think about proprietary content that way as well. Okay, so platforms are the best investments you can possibly make from an investor perspective, and also from a business model perspective when you architect and create your platform of a solution that's going to put a dent in the universe with your business plan. So always think of it that way. And Also, think of a platform from a customer service perspective. So, for example, a lot of my students in this MBA degree program, they join Slack groups and they help each other, and that's another platform within a platform, so to speak. So to speak, yeah. But the key is that you have to entice people to create content. You really do if you want to be successful. And so when it comes to Apple and Google, and we'll talk about mobile competition in much more detail in 312 today. Okay, so that's the next topic. But when it comes to Apple and Google, they charge 30% for every sale that occurs on their platform, the iOS store and Google Play as well. Okay, so we know that Nintendo's been incredibly successful because of this platform, the platforms that they've created over the years. In terms of discussing platforms as well as customer service in your business plan, so when it comes to platforms, I want you to think about it in terms of product milestones or service milestones. And so if we do a search here on the word milestone, milestone, here we go. Yeah. So there's a ton of milestones that come up here. So for example, your future business plan milestone or product. And what you can do here is you can talk about your product, what it's going to look like in the long run in terms of you developing it as a platform solution, if that's relevant to your business model, and investors love this. And so if I copy this, the way to find this in Excel is, as always, you go up here, you paste it, boom, and it appears right here. There's lots of places for it. In terms of here over in PowerPoint for the presentation, I drew something up here quickly for you, but this slide here is called Future Milestones, but I changed it to Future Milestones / Product Roadmap. And maybe you can list products at different years. 2022 will be one product, then another product, another product, another product, and then a platform holding all those products commensurate with Microsoft Windows, with Office, Word, Excel, that sort of thing. So that's how you think about roadmaps / milestones or platforms if it's relevant to your business model as you articulate it in your slides, as well as within Excel and the Microsoft Word business plan document. When it comes to customer service, what you can do is you don't mention this customer service really in your slides because the purpose of the 10 slides is, hey, can I get a first meeting or can I get a second meeting? And then you drill down that later. It is important, but you don't talk about it right away unless the investor or the person you're meeting with asks. So what you can do is over here, you can just do a search on customer service. Company is only as good as its customer service, and it comes up a couple of times. And so as always, you can copy this here without the space at the end. Oops, copy. And then you go here into Excel, and then you paste it, and it appears right here. So that's how we should think about customer service as well as platforms within our business plan. All right, so let's see what is next. It's fun not having slides, man. All right, here we go. All right, cool. Yeah, and so what Nintendo has also done incredibly well is they've diversified, okay? They've created lots and lots of different assets. Okay, damn it, dude. It's gonna take me ages to get back there. So screw it. I'll just walk through it as I talk to you. So Nintendo, I remember talking to the CFO of Nintendo, and I asked the CFO, I said, why is it that you don't make an incredible Mario game every single year? Because I love the Mario games. Oh my God, I just died. And what the CFO told me was that we can't just make only Mario games, because if we only make Mario games, then we're putting all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak. And I said, well, why don't you just hire more people to make more Mario games? And the CFO at the time told me, well, there's only a certain number of developers that are good enough to create content like this. And I basically said, well, look, Super Mario 64 was a great game. Why did I have to wait like 4 or 5 years or whatever it was until the GameCube came out for Super Mario Sunshine? Why did I then have to wait, after 02, why did I have to wait another 4 years before I could play another Mario game, which was Galaxy, and then Galaxy 2. And then more recently, of course, they have Super Mario Odyssey. Why is that? And he said, because again, only certain developers can make these games. And those same developers are so good at what they do, and there's not many of them out there, that we don't want them only making Mario content. And the example that the CFO gave me at the time was, if you look at the Walt Disney Corporation, which is a company that Nintendo's always respected a lot, and they're trying to be like them lately with theme parks, etc. But if you look at the Walt Disney Corporation, he said they don't just have Mickey Mouse, right? They also have Goofy, Pluto, Donald Duck. I haven't seen those characters in like forever, but they have that. And of course, they have the Pixar assets that they acquired, so that they can diversify. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, and so that's why they went on and created great content like Zelda, which we'll talk about later, as well as Pikmin. And Pikmin, I'll talk a little bit about just the brainchild behind those assets as I try to get to the next level here. But what happened was there was this brilliant man named Miyamoto-san, and Miyamoto-san he wanted to work at Nintendo back in the 70s, and he didn't know how, and so he networked a lot. And actually, his dad networked for him and helped him to get that job, that coveted job at Nintendo. And he absolutely loved what he did. He loved it to the extent that he didn't see it as a job, he saw it as a passion. And Miyamoto, he created a lot of the IP you see here because when he was a kid, I got to go back and kill this guy again, I'm sorry. It's something I got to do. But when he was a kid, he had a great imagination. And so when he was in his backyard, when he was a child, growing up in Japan, what he did was he pretended that he had lots of friends, or he saw these little characters called Pikmin, which is this icon right this IP right here. Yeah, it's an amazing product. I don't know if you guys have tried this. I play with my kids. It's wonderful. But the brainchild behind this was Miyamoto-san. And he created this IP when he was a kid. He was an artist as a kid, and he's an artist now. We should all still be artists at our age, please. but that's what he did. And the same thing with Zelda. He would walk in the forest behind his house, and he would pretend he saw certain characters, like Zelda. Don't die, Chris. Don't die, please. No, I can't take it. Don't die. Oh my God, it's killing me. Okay. You know what I'm going to do right now? I have to go in high speed mode right now to finish this level. So I'll go, Matt, who's my wonderful editor and my chief creative officer, like Miyamoto-san. Matt, go high speed until I finish this. Thanks. All right, I did it. I'm back. And it reminds me, my dad told me when I was a kid, Chris, never take a shortcut you've never taken before when you're in a hurry. So there are no shortcuts. I try to take a shortcut there. And I'm a victim. I'm a bad designer, man. I mean, I forgot that if Mario is big, it's harder to get by this level. Here we go. So you got to diversify your assets, and they've certainly done so exceptionally well. So yeah, I think you guys get what I'm saying there. And the same thing with portfolio management. Like whenever you construct a portfolio of assets from an investment perspective, you never put all your eggs in one basket. You know, I recommend never having more than 5% of your non-house liquid net worth in any one stock or investment. You got to diversify. And Nintendo has certainly done that. And they've done an excellent job of that. Better so than Microsoft, that's for sure. I mean, Microsoft, from a proprietary content perspective, you know, they've got Gears of War, which is dope. I like that game. They got Halo, and not much else to show for it. Yeah, and then there's some proprietary content also on the PlayStation, like games by Naughty Dog, like Uncharted and The Last of Us and MLB The Show. But nobody has diversified better than Nintendo has. And I didn't even mention Pokemon as well. My kids love that, and Pokemon cards too. In terms of mentioning diversification in your financial model, as well as the PowerPoint slides and Word, let me first of all throw caution into the wind there initially. It's important to mention that longer term you're diversified, but initially, because there's a lot of execution risk when it comes to startups, you don't want to give the potential investor reading this business plan or looking at your slides, you don't want to give them the impression that you're stretching yourself too thin by focusing on too many things. So otherwise you might come across as a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And so what I recommend doing initially is just talk about one product or one service and articulate this on your slides. Just the one product that you're focused on solving, and maybe an image of the product here. And then if you want, in terms of future milestones, you can talk about way down the road, additional products and or services that you and your team will be creating or deploying. But initially, don't come across as somebody that has their hands in too many pies because execution risk is very high for a single product company, even when it's early stage. So that's how you cover it here on your slides. In terms of Microsoft Word, let me go into the right Word document here. What you can do is just do a search on milestones as well, like we talked about earlier. And then just here, future milestones. You could mention future products that you're going to release as well. Lastly, in terms of Microsoft Excel, what you can do is in the financial section here, I gave you the flexibility of adding 2 revenue line items. If you wanted to add one line item and then maybe a second one later, that's 1 of 2, and there's 2 of 2 below. Yeah. You can add that in a future year if you want to. And you can even slightly change this spreadsheet. And you should know enough about Excel now, based where we are in this part of the MBA degree program, considering the Excel exercise we've done in the past. You should know enough about Excel now to be able to add, and it's fun, add more revenue line items here. And if you want, you can add additional revenue line items here below line 39 here in the out years, maybe in these years here, or these quarters out here in 3, 4, or 5 years from now. So that's basically how you account for future products and or services in all 3 documents when it comes to diversification. But the bottom line is initially you just want to show that you're focused on one major product or service, but you'll diversify in the long run. All right, so we talked about diversification. Oh my God, this is a tough one. All right, next up is risk taking. Okay, and let's see if you can see how I spelled risk with these letters up there with the red pipes. But Nintendo takes lots and lots of risks, unlike their competition. Oh, there we go. Unlike their competition. Oh my God, it's killing me. Okay, unlike the competition. So when it comes to controllers and risks in general, and I am going to fast forward in a second, so you don't have to watch me play like an idiot, the idiot I am. But these controllers, man, they're basically the same and have always been the same since day one. It's ridiculous, really. I mean, if you look at the PlayStation, and yes, Sony's been very successful, I get it, but they're not that innovative, right? And they've tried with, I guess some of their VR products are a little bit innovative, but when it comes to controllers, they just don't take risks. This thing, dude, this here is for the PS4, and it looks the same as it did on the PS1. I mean, the PS1 was slightly different color. It was gray. But it looks identical. There's no risk-taking with this. Yes, they've added rumble features and a light on the back and all that stuff, and a little speaker, which Nintendo pioneered. But this looks the same as Gen 1 for them back in the 90s. Same thing with Microsoft. There's no innovation here at all. And this controller here, this is for the 360, but it could easily have been for the Xbox One, which is this controller here, which I customized. It's got the same corporate colors as my company. It's identical. They don't take any risk. Nintendo does. Let's switch over to this camera here, please. But Nintendo has changed the controller so many times over the years. They take risks. They could easily have stuck with the status quo and never changed the Wii controller. They could have stuck with this for future generations. They decided not to. The Wii was a huge success. The Wii U was a failure, but so what? At least they tried, and they keep innovating. And now with the Switch, this here is the controller, and it is so damn innovative. And you guys all know how this works. You can take them off and play with them individually. They've got a gyroscope included as well for motion. And also you could tie them together on many accessories, and Nintendo makes a fortune off these accessories. Yeah. But they've innovated over the years, and these are all the patent filings over the years for them. So this here is U.S. patent from December 24th of 1996. And then here we've got this here is the Nintendo. I think is that the 64? I think it is, yeah. Of course, this is one of the DS's. This is the Game Boy here. They keep innovating over and over and over again. And so, and everybody copies them too. Like the whole notion of having these buttons on the top here, that's something that Nintendo pioneered back in the late 1980s, or maybe around 1990 with the Super NES, the 16-bit version, right? They created that, and everybody copies them. But they're not afraid to take risks. They're not afraid, and that's one of the many reasons that they've been incredibly successful. Okay, I'm going to go into high-speed mode again to get back to where I was, and I know I should have put checkpoints in here, but I'm just a lousy developer. Okay, so I'll go into high speed now. All right. Whoops. So Nintendo has taken tons of risks over the years, and they've failed a lot too. And just like Michael Jordan said, I failed over and over and over again, and that's why I succeed. But they've had a lot of missteps that people don't talk about very much. And so right behind me on the top of the mural here, and let me pause this for a second. But they created a virtual robot product that failed big time. It was an absolute disaster. And they also, they were a little bit early to the game when it came to virtual reality. They created this virtual reality game that made you really dizzy, and the only color you could see was the color red. But that was a big flop as well. But at least they took risks. At least they took risks. And you'll never get anywhere if you don't take many, many risks. And as Michael Jordan said, I failed over and over and over again in my career, and that is why I succeed. All right. Now, let's see if you can tell me, whoops, no, what those letters say. See right there? It says risk. Whoops, there you go, good. Yeah, R-I-S-K. And I was supposed to be able to have a thing to shoot these guys with, but I lost it. So risk. All right, I took risks and we made it, good. All right. All right. Also, Nintendo, they were contrarian as well. And I got to go slow here because something very scary is about to happen in the game, that is. But in 1983, the industry was a disaster. And the entire video game industry went belly up. And revenue fell over 90% for the entire industry at one point in the 1980s. And one of the reasons was because the game quality really sucked. And so we talked before in this MBA degree program about the case study on Atari and how Atari created a game called E.T., which was such a massive disaster that it caused them to go bankrupt. Why? Because they made too much of that product, way too much of it. And so Let me show you this guy here, and then I'm gonna hit pause. He scares the hell out of me. Look at that. Okay, that's the money shot right there. Okay, I'll pause it for a second. Yeah, and so the entire industry went belly up, and so that's why I always talk about how inventory can be absolutely disastrous for you when you start a company. It can destroy your business model, and so I only want you to create a product if somebody buys it first, if you can do it. So for example, when you make books online, you sell them over Amazon. Amazon doesn't print that book until after you've bought it. And if you look in the back cover of any book you've bought online, if you look here on the soft cover at least, you can see the day it was made and where it was made. And it's usually made 1 or 2 days after you order the product or the same day. And then you get it a couple days later. So I want you to think like Amazon does. Collect the money first, then make the product if you can. And Michael Dell kind of pioneered this in the 1980s from his dorm room in Texas when he started Dell Computer. People would order computers, pay for them first, and then he'd make them, customize them for them, and then mail them to them. So think about it from that perspective as well. But the entire industry went belly up in the early 80s. And it's really interesting, actually 1983 to be exact. And it wasn't just because of excess inventory, but also because there was a strategic inflection point in the industry to the extent that people started buying computers, right? And the personal computer and the Mac in 1984 came out, and IBM had Charlie Chaplin and all these old crazy commercials to try to sell computers. I remember that well. And so people started thinking, I don't need to buy a video game console anymore. And so what Nintendo did was brilliant. When the whole industry went belly up in 1983 or so, what they did was they saw crisis as an opportunity. And so, and you got to be a contrarian, as Warren Buffett says, be a contrarian and watch your net worth take off. You know, the longer the view, the wiser the intention. And so Nintendo was a contrarian, and there was blood in the water. And this is when they entered the market aggressively. And the way they did it was brilliant from a design perspective. They created the 8-bit NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. And they designed it so that it actually, I don't know if you guys remember how it looked, but it actually looked like a VCR. And I'll show you what that means. Because a lot of families were buying VCRs at that point as well. So let's go over here together. This will be fun. So let's look at the NES. See if it comes up here. NES Classic Edition. Let's go to images here. Yeah, so here's what it looked like right here. And basically what would happen is you would open it up and put a cartridge in just like, here it is right here. Here's a good picture here. Yeah. So you would put it in just like a VCR, right? So VCR, you put in the cartridge there as well. And so they designed it to look like a VCR as well. It was absolutely brilliant. And of course, one of the many reasons why they were so successful is because of their brilliant content as well. This game had taken off in arcades, Mario Brothers, as well as Donkey Kong as well, which we'll talk about soon in more detail. And you'll see I'll have a Donkey Kong shirt in little inserts here every now and then. But they created great content, and they entered in at a great time as well, because there's no competition. And so I believe in starting companies when nobody else is. And so I think the best time to start a company is in a recession, because you don't have very much competition at that point. And you're lean and mean, fighting machine, by the time you come out of that recession, and you're levered to the upside. You're levered to the upside. Plus, you're running scared, and only the paranoid survive when you start a company in a recession. It's a scary time to start a company, but that's when you got to do it, because everybody else is scared. That's when you have to do it. And so that's what Nintendo did back in 1983. This hippo guy scares the crap out of me. So with crisis comes opportunity, and that's when they started. And I cheated here by creating a little Luigi guy to kind of escape. Whew, thank goodness. In terms of talking about the industry in general, what you can do is you can talk about the problems with the industry that you're entering. So for example, here on your presentation slide, on slide number 4, you can talk about the industry problem, and you can talk a little bit about historical nature of the industry and the issues that the industry has had, and how your product and or solution or service comes up with the solution. on how you're going to address the shortcomings of the industry. With crisis comes opportunity. In terms of how to find this within the Word document, you just, or the Excel document, I should say, as always, we just copy, we paste here without the extra space on the end. And then it should come up right over here. And then it's obviously within this document here. So we can even go here and just do a search without the space at the end on industry problem. And it should come up here. Is it even here? Oh, I guess it's not. Wow. No, it's final industry. Is that right? It should be in here. Let me do a search for the word problem. Market. Okay. Yeah, here it is here. So I called it market problem and solution right here. So let me just click there to go there. Is it even there? Yeah, it's right here. Okay. Oh, here it is. It's called Final Business Plan Executive Summary Market Problem and Solution. And you can copy this and paste it here. And it's going to go back to the main dashboard you'll see, which is right here. Oh, I thought it would link directly to the first page. Okay, it doesn't. But anyway, it shows up here, right here on Market Problem and Solution. Yeah, so that's where you document it. And as always, you want to kind of create a straw dummy of an argument, meaning you say where the weaknesses are in the industry so you can beat up that argument and say how your product and or solution, your product and or service is a solution to the problem that the industry has. All right, next up is, I kind of butchered that because I destroyed part of the letters there, but I wrote here, what you got to do is you got to hire less people. I spelled less wrong. You got to hire fewer people, which is what Nintendo does. But you also have to hire, that's an up arrow, higher quality people as well. And so I really believe that a couple gals or guys in a garage can put a dent in the universe and destroy large bureaucratic companies. I believe that small groups of people can change the world. And we all know that because in group projects that you might have been in, or when you've worked in companies, when you had a team meeting or a group meeting, if there's too many people in that group, it's a disaster. Too many chefs in the kitchen and nothing gets done. Small groups of people can and always will change the world. So that's what Nintendo does. It's embedded within the DNA subfabric of who they are, their essence. They hire fewer people, but very, very high quality people. And it's such an amazing company that there's actually each employee, the amount of profit that Nintendo makes every year, if you take the number of employees divided by the profit, each employee generates $1 million or more in profit. There's hardly any companies ever that have done that, but Nintendo has done that successfully. And as I mentioned before, you can't just hire tons of developers. You can't just scale a business model by hiring tons of developers to make games like this. Only very few people can make high quality games like this. And so, as I mentioned before, the developers that work on the Mario games are the same developers that work on the Zelda games and the Pikmin games and Pokemon, etc. So hire fewer people, but high quality people. It's a recipe that has always worked. And I always mention that you got to hire slowly and fire quickly. And I really do believe that. You know, I'm a bit of I feel bad saying it because I don't practice what I preach. I do hire slowly and I have very few people in my company, but I don't fire quickly. You know, it's just who I am, whatever. A little off topic there. But that's what Nintendo does. And Nintendo only hires people that are incredibly passionate about what they do. You know, they're creating art. That's what they do. And they actually underpay their employees too, relative to the market. But employees feel like, oh my gosh, it's a privilege to work at Nintendo. And the corporate culture is so intense there that people are very self-deprecating that work there, to the extent that the CEO in a bad year would say, I'm going to take a 50% pay cut. You know, I'm going to punish myself that way because they have such a standard for excellence. And they absolutely love doing what they're doing. And I feel like they have a gazillion Picassos working there. You know, they're artists, not just musicians, but artists as well. It's an incredible company. They hire fewer people, but very, very high quality people, always. The culture is unbelievable too. People love to work there. And I almost actually went to go work there after business school. I kind of wish I did. But I went to Wall Street instead, and I was unhappy. But I know I'd have been much happier working at Nintendo. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for them, it's oops, I picked up the wrong controller. So it's high quality people that love doing what they're doing. And speaking of Miyamoto-san, I know I mentioned him earlier. So he is the brainchild of a lot of this great intellectual property at Nintendo. He is a rock star, man, to the extent that he doesn't go outdoors much in Japan much anymore, and he doesn't do many interviews there because he doesn't want to be mobbed. And Paul McCartney, he once went to Japan I think it was back in the 80s, and he had never seen Mount Fuji, and he didn't care about Mount Fuji. All he wanted to do was to meet with Miyamoto-san. The guy's a rock star. He's amazing. And every year, I used to go to the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas in early January. And I would also go to the E3 video game convention every May or June in Los Angeles. And the biggest rock star there always was Miyamoto-san. I was there one year, and Paris Hilton was hired by a mobile development company to sign autographs. And of course, people were kind of all crowding around her, but nothing like Miyamoto-san. He is a rock star. And I remember when I went to a press conference when I worked at Goldman Sachs and I did Japanese equities. I went to a press conference when they were launching at CES. I think it was an '02. It was the GameCube. And I remember Miyamoto was up there, and these kids snuck in, and they asked a question, and they said, "Can I get your autograph?" And he doesn't sign autographs, but he did it then for them. I've never seen kids so happy. They ran up with Super Mario 64, the box, and he signed it for them. He doesn't sign autographs. He's a very private person, but he's a rock star, man. He is a rock star. Yeah. And at that point, he was talking about Pikmin, which was his latest IP. Anyway, and that's when he talked about how he thought of this game when he went into his backyard. He was a kid. He's got a great imagination. He's willing to take risks, and he doesn't care what people think of him. Because if I told you that you hired an employee and you own this entertainment company in the 80s, and this employee says to you, "You know what, man? How about a game where there's an Italian plumber and he tries to chase after, a gorilla to save his girlfriend. And he has a hammer and he hits things with a hammer." Like, you'd think it's nutty. It's nutty. But he doesn't give a damn what anybody thinks of him or his ideas. He takes a lot of risks. And this was a hell of a big risk as well. A big risk. But at the same time, from a content perspective, what they did at Nintendo was they used a recipe that's worked for decades. You find somebody to rescue somebody else by beating up somebody bigger, stronger than you. It's David versus Goliath, and that's what happened with Donkey Kong as well. It was basically a play on King Kong, right, or Godzilla, for example. It was brilliant, and that story worked then. And it works exceptionally well now. And even Star Wars, what they did with the lightsabers and everything, those are old sword fighting movies, just redone. But anyway, just an amazing product. Yeah. All right. And I never want this lecture to end because I'm in my element and I'm having fun. This is fun. All right. So back to, whoops. Oh, shoot. I clicked start over. Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Well, I'm not even going to go into high speed mode. Matt, just freeze frame and go right to where I was. Thanks. All right, I'm back. I can't lie to you. I'm having fun. Okay. Next up, we've got here. Oh, yeah. This is a good one. All right. So what they also do is, as I mentioned before, they create really, really cheap hardware. And so they don't try to compete based on high quality hardware. Okay, so really, really cheap hardware. And not many people make money from hardware, but they figured out a way to do it. And they've never they've never decided to use hardware as a loss leader. And that's a business model that a lot of companies use. Like it's the razor blade business model, where companies like Gillette or whoever makes razors, they'll actually lose money selling the razor itself, but they'll make a fortune on the razor blades. And that's a business model that a lot of companies have used successfully and unsuccessfully. And Hewlett Packard's been doing that too for decades now with printers. A lot of times you'll buy a printer and it's so cheap and they'll lose money on the printers, but they'll make a lot of money if you buy their genuine printer cartridges as well. But Nintendo is different because they're probably one of the only companies that's figured out how to consistently make money from all of their hardware products. And they won't release a hardware product unless they're making money on it as well. So they make money obviously on the hardware, and they make a ton of money on the software, because software, as we know, has really, really high margins, meaning it doesn't cost you much to make software. And then you can just sell it digitally for download purposes. And we know when we talked about repurposing content, just how high the profit margins are for Nintendo when they sell content they've made in the past. Okay. I picked up the right controller this time. All right, here we go. All right. And then they, oops, let's see what I got here. And I made lots of back doors here just in case I screw it up. And then I wrote here, games sell hardware. Okay, yeah. So games sell the hardware. That's what they do. And the problem is a lot of their competition hasn't realized that. Like, for example, Microsoft with their next-gen console, there's really no killer app for it. You know, the reason why you buy Nintendo hardware is obviously because of the great proprietary content that they have. You don't see that with other consoles as much. And it was terrifying actually for Nintendo when Microsoft entered the market, because what Microsoft did was Microsoft hired one of the best development firms on the planet that makes games for Nintendo, which is a company called Rare, which made Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, which is a little bit racy, and a bunch of other pretty cool content. And the Donkey Kong titles, of course. But Microsoft tried to buy their way in the market, and they just, in typical fashion, whenever a big company buys a smaller one, if they try to integrate it too quickly, it just destroys the brand. And Rare got destroyed because of that. You got to be like Zuckerberg with Facebook. And if you buy companies like Instagram or WhatsApp, let them run as separate entities. So you don't screw up the culture of that company. Okay, cool. So let's move on now. All right. And I'm going to go through this door here to see what the next topic is. Oh, yeah. Oh, I need that star badly. It's okay, though, because I'm big here. Yeah, this is hell. Okay. So I'm not going to teach. I'm just going to play this last level here, because this is tough. And oh, my God, I need that star. Okay, hold on. Star. Please. Okay, good. Good. Okay, good. Whew. All right, so we're almost done here. Oh my God, don't. No. I'm not going to die. Okay, here we go. Yes. Woo. Okay. We did it.
We are done with topic number 1.
Please let me know if you have any questions. All right, next up, let's enter this next world. This is EMS 3-1-2. I only have 28 lives left. And future key learning for me is to make little checkpoints. All right, I got smarter, though, at the beginning, because I put these. Oh, my God, I'm such an idiot. I missed the most important thing. I didn't get smarter. Okay. All right, so I got to go up here. And the next, here we go. Yeah. So I want to talk about this next topic here, which is nostalgia. And so what Nintendo's done a great job at is appealing to emotion and nostalgia as well. You know, the products they've created, the intellectual property, really transcends generations. It really does. And it's kind of like Coca-Cola. or other beverages where you consume them when you were younger, and it elicits an emotion because maybe you shared a Coke with your mom or your dad. Have a Coke and a smile, they used to say. And so great marketing appeals to nostalgia as well. And again, it transcends generations. And Nintendo has done a superb job of this as well. Yeah. So I think it's important to mention nostalgia as well as just branding in general when it comes to Nintendo, because it does transcend generations. All right, let me continue here. Move on. I wish I'd kept that acorn. I was bigger Mario. Yeah. Okay. Next up, what I want to do is I want to talk about cross-selling. Okay. And so Nintendo has done a superb job at cross-selling their content over the years. And so what they'll do is they'll introduce a new character, like a Yoshi, for example, in a new game. And then what they'll do is they'll cross-sell that by selling a Yoshi product, Yoshi game, whatever it might be. It's a brilliant strategy. And we need to be cognizant of this as well in business. And what I try to do is quite often in my courses, I'll mention other courses. And it's a way for me to cross-sell other courses of mine. And then there's something called, in business, called upselling, where you have an existing customer base in a cheaper product, and then you upsell to a more expensive product. Which is basically what I've done with this MBA degree program. And Nintendo has sort of done that as well by selling more expensive games. So what they do is they repurpose their older Mario games. And then they upsell, so to speak, by you buying more recent versions as well of that product. But cross-selling is something that Nintendo does exceptionally well. And it's not just Mario with Yoshi. But they also do it with other IP as well. And so they've done it a lot within games like Super Smash Bros. As well, where they've cross-sold other IP or other games, so to speak. It could be Link. This is not Zelda. I thought Zelda was this dude's name. Link. Zelda is actually the princess. Yeah. This here is Link. And so in a lot of their games, you'll see that they'll include characters from other games as well. And one of the issues with Miyamoto-san years ago was he was a little bit worried that the company was getting a little bit too focused on Mario. And so what he did was he created Luigi and then released several Luigi IP games. Like Luigi's Mansion 1, 2, and 3, which are great games. And so they're brilliant at cross-selling their content as well. And that's something we could certainly learn from them. When it comes to documenting upselling and cross-selling within your business plan and your presentation slides, this goes hand in hand with the milestone section that we already talked about, or the future roadmap of your product portfolio. And so when you talk about the future plan that you have for your products and your company in general, similar to what I drew here for the future milestones, and I added here /product roadmap, you can talk about the additional new products you're going to be releasing in the future, and then what your go-to-market strategy is, meaning how are you going to cross-sell your products or upsell to your existing customers or new customers. And if you want to look at a snapshot of this, you can go here to your go-to-market strategy, which documents how you're going to sell directly and indirectly, as well as you can articulate here how you're going to upsell or cross-sell your products. Next up is this. This is tough to read, but I wrote less discounting. Yeah. And so, and I got to pause this because these guys scare the hell out of me here, especially that guy throwing the hammer. But Nintendo's done a superb job of not discounting their premium products. And you'll notice that, like, what happens with most video games is they start out at $59.99, $59.99 in the United States at least. And then within a month or so, that price gets knocked down pretty darn quickly to $49, then $39, then eventually gets re-released as greatest hits, $19.99, whatever it is. Nintendo does not discount their highest quality older IP, their older games. And they've been pretty stubborn about this, and it's really, really smart. Because once you start over discounting, and I've run into that in my business, I won't go into that in too much detail. Once you start over discounting, then consumers get used to it, and they'll end up not buying products for full price ever. They'll just wait until the next sale, the next discount. But Nintendo for their premium products doesn't do this. And you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to go off script here, and let's go over here to, I'll go to Amazon, what the hell. And let's go to orders, and I'll look at games that my kids have bought. Or the thing about having 3 kids, 3 boys, is I get to be a kid again. It's great. It's fun. And from a nostalgia perspective, it transcends generations. It really, really does. You know, I remember when we got the Wii, and it was this dude here who would say, "Daddy, can you help me with this level in Super Mario Galaxy?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, fine, twist my arm." But it really does transcend generations. But what I've done here is I've just done a search on Mario here. On stuff I've purchased over the years, and I want to see if there's discounting here. So this one here, I bought this in 2017, years ago. This is Mario Kart. I probably paid $59.99 for it. I bought this one as well, which was Odyssey. Right, this is my history here, and let's see if these are discounted at all. They're not. Well, I guess it is. This one here is $10 off, but it certainly held the pricing point brilliantly. And this one as well. I haven't seen too much discounting from them, to be honest. But I'm going to call a spade and not edit this. There's not nearly as much discounting as you've seen with older games. Let's go here. Let's see what else. Over the years, let me go to another one. Let's go here. These are for my kids for Christmas over the years. And speaking of nostalgia in transcending generations, I mean, this is unbelievable. Just how it has in my family. This is Matthew one is for Christmas. That's a pillowcase as well. And they've been absolutely brilliant. And Andrew wears this one still sometimes. They've been brilliant at marketing their products as well. Cross-selling, not just for games, but merchandise as well, and in commercials. And even when you go to McDonald's, a lot of times when you get a Happy Meal for the kids, they still have a lot of Nintendo toys, right? It's brilliant marketing and branding. Let's see this one here. So I bought this back in 2011 for Matthew, my middle child. Yeah. Oh, the picture's back here. Yeah. This dude here, he's a bit older now, but I bought that one for him. He loves Mario. So this is 2011. I guess he was 5 at the time. Let me open it up to see what the look at that, man. That is unbelievable. Okay. And I guess I have 3 kids, so I'm not going to go there. You can't just give one kid a present. It's got to be all 3, right? But look here. This has really not been discounted much at all, you know, relative to other intellectual property or other products. If you did a search for, I don't know, Halo, and I'll go there next, all those products are discounted. Call of Duty is always discounted as well. If it doesn't sell well in the first couple of months, then it's been a disaster for Activision, ticker ATVI, which we'll talk about later on, actually, in topic 2 today. Yeah, I'll talk about competition soon. All right, so let's go down and see what else we have here. I'm fully transparent, as you know. Here's Galaxy. This one's probably discounted, yeah. But all the way back then, it's pretty amazing. But let's do a search now on Call of Duty. Spelled duty right this time. All right, so let's see here. This here, I bought this in 2015. This one has definitely been discounted. It's not even available anymore. And if it was, it would certainly be discounted a lot. And look at this. Yeah. Some of these older games, different IP, you got Call of Duty here. Here it is. Yeah. So these ones here, $10 for an older title of theirs. This one is $6. Yeah, it's unbelievable, the discounting you see on other video games. But Nintendo, for the most part, doesn't discount nearly as much as other companies do. Now, for some of the older digital downloads from the 8-bit and 16-bit version, yeah, they can discount there. But there's a game they have, Mario 64, which I think is probably the best video game they've ever made. I don't think it's been discounted very much, right? And this, they don't make this anymore. That's for the N64, which is this bad boy here. But let's actually look to see if you can find it here. Yeah. So right here, you can get it on the DS. Looks like somebody is reselling it. I'm trying to find a Nintendo selling it. I guess they don't sell it anymore because they got out of that. They don't make the DS anymore. Basically, they just have the Switch. From a diversification perspective, it's kind of risky, but yeah. Anyway, but a lot of the other products you don't see that much discounting. Let's take a look at Switch games. Actually, let's go here together. Where is it? Switch. Look at all the consoles they have. All right, so I'm going to go to Switch right here, and let's look at the IP here. Yeah, and this one is just sold incredibly well. I haven't tried it yet, but during COVID, it's been a bestseller. And even some Congress people in the United States are playing it as well with their constituents. It's interesting. Yeah, but this here, oh, dude, this one here is actually a re-release. Talking of repurposing their content, and look at the pricing point. It's held up still. Usually it's $59.99, but it's held up incredibly well, and that's an older one. Now, in terms of cross-selling, this is probably the best thing I could show you. The best example of it. They released a Super Smash Brothers product, which was kind of a way for Nintendo to get a little bit away from the PG family style games and move up a bit. And so this one here is rated E10, but still is a way for them to kind of compete with the more edgy products out there. And we'll talk about competition with Sega very soon, later on in this topic too here. But here's all the products here they cross-sell. This is Kirby, I think here, Pokemon, Yoshi, etc. They do a great job at this. Donkey Kong as well, my favorite actually. They do an amazing job at this. Amazing job. So they certainly don't discount as much. They make a ton of money on accessories as well. If you buy anything Nintendo branded, you usually pay a higher pricing point than if you buy other non-Nintendo branded products here. Okay, so let me get back on track here and get back to where I was. Okay, I'm gonna hit plus and not exit course this time. Okay, good. Oh my God. Yeah, I got to concentrate here. Hold on a second. But I gave myself a star there as well. Let me get that dog. And we'll come back to oh my God. We'll come back to this dog here a little bit later on when we talk about the Boston Consulting Group matrix, which I've set up here in one of the levels. All right, so let me move on here. I'm going to move up here. All right, let's see what's behind this door here. How do I jump out of this thing? Oh my God. I can't get up there now. I have to. Okay, I had to end myself there. Please start at this level. Please, please, please. I think it starts right at the beginning, right? Here we go. All right. There we go. So now I'm going to get the squirrel. This is what I intended before. Okay, so let me get past all the nostalgia crap here. All right. Okay. Yeah. So we talked about cross-selling. Let me just drop all the way down here. We talked about cross-selling. We talked about, we also talked about less discounting. And I show you examples there on Amazon, which is fun and real time. Let me move on here. Get the dog. And then I'll go up here into this clown thing. So I can go up one level. And this time I'll do, ooh, careful, Chris. Let me jump out properly this time. Oof. Help. Okay, good. And then we'll see what's behind this yellow door here. All right. Next up, we have long-term focus. Long-term focus. Yeah. They have a very, very long-term focus at Nintendo. They always have. The longer the view, the wiser the intention. They know that if they discount, it's very short-term focused. And yes, they might generate more revenue, but it really will hurt their margins in the very, very long run. And probably the best way to talk about how long-term focused they are is that they know that they're, if they just stick with the current status quo, whoops, my mic dropped there, sorry. If they just stick with the current status quo, and they don't change their controllers, like, Sony has kept their controller like this forever. Same thing with Microsoft. If they don't change and innovate, then they won't be relevant longer term. And again, Nintendo does not compete based on very high graphics quality, because they want, unlike these dudes here, they actually want to make money on the hardware and the software as well. Of course. Let me put this back here. All right, cool. And as you can see here, many patent filings, they continue to innovate and change a lot. And by the way, if you want to find out, there's a couple ways to kind of understand where a company is going longer term, strategy-wise. One way is to look at their patent filings. And this happens a lot actually with Apple. What Apple will do is they'll actually show their hand, so to speak, by releasing patents, right? And so when you file a patent, it's part of the open domain. Everybody can see it. And so sometimes there'll be special little drawings like this. These are blueprint drawings that will kind of show what companies are doing longer term. Okay. And so another way outside of IP or intellectual property to tell where a company is going longer term with their corporate strategy is to go to their website and look at job postings. A lot of times they'll hire for new departments that they're secretly creating as well. And I remember a couple of years ago, Apple was hiring a lot of people that were software developers in the automotive sector, which kind of showed their hand that they were going to make, a Mac-based operating system for their cars, which are basically everywhere now. And Google's done the same thing as well, which is brilliant. And what Steve Jobs used to do, a little bit off script here, God bless him, he's no longer with us, obviously, but what he used to do was he was so paranoid about his R&D getting out there and people finding out about corporate secrets that what he did was he codenamed products they were working on in development, certain code names, and he'd give different code names to different people in the firm. And if it got out, then he would know who to go after in his company, so to speak, meaning how that secret was released. And a lot of companies will do that. They'll actually call different products different things. So for example, Nintendo with, I think it was the GameCube. I think this is the controller for it. Or actually, maybe that's. I don't think that is. I think that's for the 64. But for GameCube, they called it Dolphin for years internally. Little code name. Yeah. All right. So they're very, very long-term focused. They don't discount very much. They also understand that creating a brand new IP like Pikmin, for example, can take decades. And great marketing companies like Coca-Cola or Disney, for example, they know that it costs a lot of money to market stuff and you don't get a quick return on investment. And when you think about marketing products longer term or advertising, you got to kind of think like you're dating. You know, you don't get married after the first date. It takes a long time. And so they're certainly very long-term focused, long-term greedy, which is what they used to tell me at Goldman Sachs when I worked there. They said, Chris, always be long-term greedy or long-term focused, whatever. But there's certainly long-term focus with this type of IP as well, which hasn't done as well yet, but I think it will do incredibly well in the long run. This is a great product. They've made 3 versions of it. They've repurposed it as well. They're releasing Pikmin 3 Deluxe on the Switch later this year as well, which is just basically a repurpose of an older product they already sold. Yeah. And again, when you repurpose content, you work smarter and not harder. And also, it's great for margins. Yeah. Okay, great. All right, long-term focus. I don't want to run out of time here. I'm at 161 seconds left. All right. Kind of scared, man. What do we have next here? Oh, yeah. Okay, this is a good one. Yeah. And just, you see how I put those bricks down there? Just in case. I don't want to fall down. All right, so next up, I'll go fast here. We've got wholesale money back guarantee. And I'm running as fast as I can. Look how forward I'm leaning there. So basically, and I put this mushroom here because those guys scare the hell out of me. One of those guys' name is Larry. I don't know why, but he is. Ooh, that's going to hurt after I hit unpause, but we're good. Don't worry, because I'm already big. But in terms of wholesale money back guarantee, in the 1980s, in 1983, 84, 85, when the video games sector was left for dead, a lot of wholesale a lot of retailers like Walmart, etc. They were nervous about stocking video game consoles because they weren't selling, because the whole ET cartridge debacle we talked about. Remember, inventory can destroy your business model and really hurt resellers and wholesalers too. So what Nintendo did was they offered a 100% money back guarantee to all wholesalers that bought the NES, right? So they had nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. If it didn't sell, they could return it directly to Nintendo. And I do that as well with all my courses and my MBA degree program. There's a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee, so that there's no risk from your distributors. And when you think about distribution, they call it the channel. Okay, and so if you sell direct to consumers, like digital downloads, that's called direct selling. But the real money is in indirect selling. So for me, for example, a lot of my courses I sell, over Amazon, Udemy, StackSkills, and plenty of other places as well. And so that's indirect sales for me in the channel. It's lower margin because I have to share the economics with them. I get excited and I speak too fast sometimes, I know. But I really believe in getting a massive market share by selling through indirect channels. And that's certainly what Nintendo has done very well at doing. Now, in terms of customer support, Nintendo doesn't just offer amazing support to the wholesalers that resell their hardware and software products, but they also do to consumers. And so it's embedded within the DNA subfabric of Nintendo in their corporate culture is to have great customer support, to the extent that what they did in the 80s when they were long-term greedy and long-term focused on building market share with Nintendo of America. What they did was with every game that you bought, you actually would get, with the little handbook that comes in the case, there was a number, a 1-800 number for customer support. So there were literally tons of people that worked at Nintendo that are experts on the Zelda game. And if you couldn't get through a certain level, there was no YouTube then for walkthroughs and all that stuff, or guidebooks. But if you couldn't get through a certain level, you could call Nintendo and they would help you. They would help you. Now, the whole mindset is that if you do that, it hurts margins a lot in the short run. But in the long run, you create an unbelievable bond with your customers. And a company is only as good as its customer service. And back in the 1980s, a lot of investors in great Japanese companies, they were long-term focused as well. And so a lot of great Japanese companies, what they did in the 80s was they wouldn't compete as much on margins. They would compete on market share. And so they wanted to be long-term focused, long-term greedy, which is the right approach, get as big of a market share as possible. And then once you do that and you establish that incredible, unique bond with customers, then you've got them forever. You've got them forever. You've got what they call raving fans, so to speak. And when you create amazing customers, an amazing customer experience, then what happens is your customers start selling your product by word of mouth. Word of mouth. Yeah. So Nintendo's done a fantastic job with that, not just with wholesalers, but also with consumers. With consumers, in terms of the support lines. I don't know if they still do that. But I do know that back in the 1980s, I remember looking at a lot of business models in the software sector back then. There's a company called Broderbund, which sold Bank Street Rider. And I think they might have licensed Myst and Raven, other video games. But Bank Street Rider was kind of like Microsoft Word back then. But if they got one customer support call, then they only broke even on the product, and they lost money on the product as well. And I did that with my business model forever, to the extent that every single time a customer or a student of mine asked a question, it cost me $5.50. I quantified it to have myself or my team respond. And I did that for years and years and years. Yes, my margins weren't that great, but I got a lot of great, goodwill, because I think a company's only as good as its customer service. And now I've started to outsource things to the extent that I've got my customer support down to $1.50 per response now to customers. And for me, a lot of my courses sell for $10 after discounting, whatever. So it's important I looked at that, especially if I sell through a lot of other indirect channels where if it's a $10 course, I only get half the profit. So sometimes, yes, I would lose money, but I didn't care because I wasn't just in this for the money. I wanted to kind of offer great customer support. And you, the student, you are the customer. And I pride myself on treating you, the student, as a customer. Most teachers, I'm humble to say, I'm not bragging about myself, but most teachers don't think of the student as a customer. You know, when you go to school and you pay thousands of dollars to get a degree or whatever it is, you're the customer and you don't get treated like the customer. But with my courses, you pay maybe $10 and only a couple $100 for certain of my MBA products. And I certainly treat you as a customer, and I'm grateful. Thank you. When it comes to wholesale versus direct distribution, what we do is we refer to this as direct versus indirect sales. So direct means you sell directly to a customer. Indirect means you get a third party to sell it. And when you get a third party to sell your product, you're going to get less margins, but it might be customers you never would have gotten anyway, which is one of the reasons why I partner with companies like Udemy, Amazon, etc. And so what you can do is you can go here to your business plan and do a search for direct distribution and indirect distribution. And you don't mention this in the 10-page presentation at first, unless they want to talk about it in more detail. And you're armed and ready with your arsenal of arrows if they ask you anyway, because you prepared for it in this business plan write-up. So the way to find it directly in the Excel document is you highlight this, as always. And then we go here and you paste it, go, and there it is there. It appears right here. Yeah. And you can also account for this in your financial model if you want to, from a margin perspective, when you talk about the cost of goods sold, right? So if you sell directly to a customer, you get a higher percent of the profits than if you sell indirectly. For example, if you buy one of my courses on my website, I get very, very high profit margin. But if you buy it on another website, like a Udemy, I still get a great profit margin, but less so because that's an indirect distribution channel versus my website is a direct distribution channel. All right, let's move on here. I forgot about that. Thank you, Larry. I wonder why they would name him Larry. All right, cool. So what we're going to talk about now is frameworks. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to kick it off with the SWOT analysis framework. Okay, so SWOT, we briefly talked about this before, but this is a great way to kind of think about business plans in terms of how you compare to the competition or what your key strengths are. And so if you're in an interview situation, we talked about this in PG1, meaning first semester personal growth classes. But if you're in an interview and you're stuck, and I got to hit pause, I only got 90 seconds left there. But you can also always answer a question by looking at a SWOT analysis. SWOT, of course, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so if you're asked about a business model, you can talk about it that way. You can say, to buy yourself time, well, let's talk about the SWOT analysis. Let me kick it off with the strengths. The strengths of company X are blah, blah, blah. Moving on to the weaknesses, which are blah, blah, blah. In terms of the opportunities, blah, blah, blah. And lastly, the threats. So let's apply this now, just for fun, to Nintendo. So let's kick it off here with the strengths of Nintendo. Of course, I have something to make me stronger there. They have many strengths. A lot of it is their IP, their intellectual property, right? And that gives them a nice barrier to entry. Nobody can copy the Mario games or the Zelda games, etc. And many people have tried. Many companies have tried unsuccessfully. You know, there's something wonderful about the brand that they've created with Mario, and it's such a simplistic story too. You know, he rescues the damsel in distress by you know, the David and Goliath mentality of beating Donkey Kong. Yeah. Okay. So that's the strength. The weaknesses of Nintendo. Weakness. There you go. Bet you didn't realize you could put one of those bad guys in there as well. One of the weaknesses of Nintendo is they compete with a Godzilla of an entity called Microsoft that has deep pockets and can discount and you really won't see any impact on the financials of Microsoft at all. Another big weakness for Nintendo is the fact they don't really have a mobile strategy. And in a world where everybody is playing games on handhelds, not just these types of handhelds, but one-handed handhelds, meaning iPhones and Google handsets, of course, it's tough for them to compete. And so what they've done actually is they've decided to kind of embrace it and test the waters. They put they put one of their driving games. God, I can't remember the name of the driving game. What's it called again? I can't remember. It'll come back to me soon. But they put a Mario game on iOS as well. They haven't really made too much money off it. They don't really care. They're kind of testing the water, and it's good for branding as well, longer term. Kind of like including their products inside Happy Meals or whatever it might be, or movie tie-ins, which they've tried unsuccessfully to make Mario movies in the past, or T-shirts or pillowcases, which my kids have. I showed you all the merch my kids have as well. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, let me move on now. It's killing me. What is that other game now? That driving game. Oh my God, it's killing me. I'll move on. I'll come back to it later. Yeah. All right, and we'll talk more about mobile as well. No excuse, but it's hard for me to focus sometimes while playing a game at the same time. But we'll talk more about mobile strategies as well soon today in topic 2 when we talk about the competition. Yeah. It's an opportunity and a threat, certainly, as well. And there's a lot of short-term focused investors that really want Nintendo to provide their content, their software on other platforms as well. Like make these Mario games or Zelda games or whatever it is, Pokemon, and put it on Xbox and PlayStation and iOS, etc. But Nintendo's strategy is they want to be able to own the platform. Remember, you own the road, you charge the cars. And they also make money off of selling the platform, which is their hardware, right? And there's a reason why Nintendo has been around longer in years than all of their competitors combined. All of them. Sony was founded just after World War II. Microsoft was founded in the 1970s. Yeah, anyway. And Sega, which is Service Games, I think was founded in the 50s or 60s or something. We'll come back to Sega as well. All right. So, and a lot of short-term focused investors, if Nintendo were to put all their products on iOS and different platforms, the stock would go through the roof right away. However, the company is so long-term focused, they know that can hurt them. Look what happened to Sega. It's kind of a crappy brand now relative to their dominance with the Genesis console back in the early 90s. And again, we'll talk about Sega really, really soon. Yeah. But when it came to Pokemon Go, I guess I have to cover that as well. Or my kids played that a lot. And I remember we were in Pearl Harbor, actually, in Hawaii. And we were visiting one of the ships in Pearl Harbor. It was a submarine. And we went on it. And all of a sudden when we were there, this was years ago, 5 years ago, I guess, when people played that Pokemon Go game, my kids started running to the front of the boat. And a bunch of other kids as well. And people in their 20s were running. I was like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? And then one of my kids started crying. And I said, what happened? And my youngest one, he said, there was a lap rat over there and I didn't get it, but everybody else got it. I'll never forget that. And I was like, come on, kids, let's focus on the tour instead. Yeah. But that game, Pokemon Go, which it was astonishing how successful it got and then how everybody forgot about it. And that's the problem with mobile games as well. Nintendo gets it as well. You can have a hot selling product for a while and then it just doesn't go anywhere. But Nintendo didn't really make that. They actually outsourced that. All right. Back to the game here. Opportunities. Yes, opportunities. And of course, I have to put Yoshi there as well. There's the opportunity for Nintendo to cross-sell all their content on every single platform they make in the future. And all this IP they have, this intellectual property that they built up since the 1980s. Donkey Kong, Mario, is Zelda, etc. All this stuff they can put on future consoles of theirs forever. It's an incredible opportunity. You never see that with Microsoft to the same extent. They don't do that with Halo or Gears of War. They'll release kind of maybe a platinum older version of it, but it doesn't sell as well. It doesn't sell as well because people that play on PlayStation or the Xbox platform, they want quality of game. They want it to look amazing. But for Nintendo, they don't have to compete based on graphics. They compete based on nostalgia and storyline and this wonderful IP they've created. Yeah. And if you're curious, by the way, what this guy is here. So this here was from LCD games that Nintendo had in the early 80s, before NES came out. It was called Game & Watch. Remember this? Yeah. So that's I try to show the evolution of their brands here. All right. And that means evolution. This one comes last here. Yeah. All right. There's no way any other class will be more fun than this, dude. But I've got to find a way to make it more fun for them. Yeah. And then T is just for threats. And yep, that hurt. That hurt. And I think we talked enough about threats. All right. Let's see what is next. Are we done this level? No, not yet. Will this yellow door get us to the end? Stay tuned. We'll see. No. Survey says no. All right. So next up, what I want to talk about is, dude, how did I die there? Oh my God. Seriously? Okay. Matt, my wonderful editor, what we're going to do is we're going to go into high speed mode again. And I can get you back to where I was. I was completely unfair, but I'm at fault because I'm the guy designing this. So I'll go into high speed mode now. All right, I'm back. All right, so what I want to talk about now is another framework. And frameworks are great to use in interview situations as well as when you're when you're doing analysis on a company. And so we talked about the SWOT analysis, which is a great crutch to use in interviews. There's another one which is called the product life cycle. And so on this one here, it's kind of tough to see, but we've got on the x-axis, we've got time, and on the y-axis we've got revenue. Okay, so on the x-axis is time, y-axis is revenue. Okay, so we start out with I, which is the introduction phase of a product. Then we got the growth phase. Then we got maturity, and then we've got decline. So let me go back over here. So the introduction phase is initially revenue. It's revenues. It's kind of growing. We're not really sure yet. It's a brand new product that's kind of being tested, and Nintendo certainly tests a lot of brand new products as well. And if it takes off, which most of these do, but not all of them. Remember the Wii U, the follow-up to the Wii, the follow-up to this guy here. The Wii U was an absolute disaster. Okay, so the introduction phase, and then the growth phase is when revenue starts to accelerate. Okay, and that's where the Switch is right now. It's still doing well. And then eventually you get maturity, which is what happened for I guess the Wii itself was in the mature phase for ages. It did well as a cash cow, and we'll talk more about cash cow in a second. And then it went to decline. And so this happens with hardware and consoles. It just happens. So there's always a cycle. But what happens is what offsets these extreme cyclical downturns for Nintendo is repurposing content and releasing older IP, intellectual property, on different on newer consoles. So it kind of smooths the revenue volatility as well, which is great because for other video games, it's feast or famine in between consoles at times. And we'll talk about Activision as well as Take-Two in the competition very, very soon, again, during topic 2 today. Okay. All right. So that's the product life cycle. Now, Another nice, great matrix to use is the Boston Consulting Group matrix, and BCG it's a great consulting company, and a lot of the who's who in politics and business. A lot of them started their career at Boston Consulting Group, including Benjamin Netanyahu, who's the political leader in Israel. He went to MIT, and then he joined BCG. It's a great firm, and they've done a lot of great work when it comes to product placement. And so the BCG matrix, or Boston Consulting Group matrix, and I got to be careful because I have to spoil it for you, but Bowser Jr. is coming up, and he scares the hell out of me, right? He's small, but he's lethal. But the Boston, there he is there. Okay, let me pause for a second here. He's going to jump out of there in a second. All right, good. All right, so I'm going to pause there for a second. So the Boston Consulting Group matrix, what it does is it allows you to kind of look at companies and put them into a model where you analyze market share versus growth. And I'll unpause this in a second. But growth is the vertical line and market share is the horizontal line. Okay, it's a little tricky. Let's look at the horizontal line first. And you see the arrow pointing left there. Okay, that there is market share. And so what we've got here is you've got high market share on the left and low market share on the right. Okay, so basically, and then you've got on the vertical axis, you've got growth. Okay, so basically, what you've got here is if you're, I'm going to start in the bottom left. Oh my God, did that? Oh my dude, that I told you he scared the crap out of him. All right, I got to go in high speed mode again. Actually, Matt, don't go into high speed mode. Just start again when I get back there. Thanks. All right, we're coming up to it here. So market share is on the vertical axis. Okay, just remember that. And then growth is on the horizontal axis. And I'll get past the PLC here, and I'll be careful. Screw you, Bowser Jr. That is. So market share for the Boston Consulting Group matrix is on and I put this here on purpose so I get away from Bowser Jr. He's small but deadly. So on the left there, you've got high market share. And then going up to the top, that's growth. So market share is on, oh, seriously? And the problem is, dude, that if I have to end him. Hold on. I have to do it. The problem is that with one fire shot, I die immediately. Oh my God, I had him. Bye-bye, he's gone. Okay, good, never. Oh my God, this is so painful. Dude, I had you. Oh my God. Okay, all right. So keep rolling, Matt. But just fast forward again until I'm there again, okay? So students, one thing you should learn from today's lesson, if you learn anything, is when you make a course like this, put checkpoints in, okay? It's key learning. Okay, Matt, so boom, we're now at the next level. All right, I'm back. This time I've got a secret weapon. Secret weapon, here we go. So if he tries to come out here, I'm gonna end this guy. I'm not. Okay, so at the top there, you've got growth, going up, growth. And the bottom, I'm just gonna pause it here, okay? Because I clearly suck at this, and I'll use a mouse over here. Okay, so if you're high market share over here with high growth, you're a star, okay? This game was made for this. And then if you're high market share and low growth, you're a cow, a cash cow, okay? So Bowser Jr. is a cow. That's right, Bowser Jr., cow. Screw you. And then over here, if you're high growth and low market share, you're a question mark. High growth, low market share, because you've just been introduced. It's a brand new product. It's a question mark, right? You just don't know yet. You don't know. So low market share, high growth. And then over here, or low, yeah. And over here, if you're low market share and low growth, you're a dog. And that thing there makes the sound of a dog, by the way. It does. I'll let you listen right now as I run away, terrified from Bowser Jr. Okay, so let's go here really fast. You hear the dog? He should be barking a bit, I think. Yeah, okay, good. Look at that dude. That guy's relentless. He's over there still. Okay, all right. See you, but I wouldn't want to be you. I'm getting out of here. All right, good. So, and yes, we will get Bowser later. I think in a castle, maybe. We'll see. Yeah. Okay. So we're done. Yeah. Whew. All right. We're done. Actually, wait a second. Can we go on to the castle to get Bowser? We're still doing 3-1-2, right? Can we go there? Can we go there? Oh. Looks like not yet. What is this? Ah, that's right. We have to go talk about the competition first. All right. So now we're talking about competition. And if you run fast, by the way, over those gaps, you don't fall down. Yeah. Stick with me, kids. You'll go far. All right. So there's a ton of competitors. The first one I want to kick it off with is Microsoft. Okay. And so Microsoft, as I mentioned before, they entered the market in 2001, partially because they were terrified of Sony. Because what Sony was doing was they basically had a computer in your living room and your television was your monitor. That's what a PlayStation is. It's a computer. And Sony was terrified. And so Bill Gates decided to get into the industry. And I remember going to Microsoft's headquarters and talking to Bill Gates directly about Nintendo. And I said, would you ever consider buying Nintendo? And he said to me, are they for sale? I think he was kind of playing along with me because I'm sure it would have been much easier for them just to purchase Nintendo and buy their way into the industry. And apparently, I did some research on this recently. According to people familiar with the matter, what happened was they did apparently, or might have, or maybe they didn't, but they probably did, approach Nintendo about an acquisition, and Nintendo said, hell no, because Nintendo is so long-term focused. And so what Microsoft did instead was they bought the company that made a lot of the intellectual property, or helped them at least design some games, a company called Rare, R-A-R-E, which is an amazing asset. And the developers at Rare, which is based in England, they created Banjo and Kazooie, part 1 and 2. The third version was a disaster, which was only on Xbox because Microsoft bought the company, and that's what happens. You buy companies and you integrate them, and innovation dies. And then Microsoft had a product called Perfect Dark, I think as well. No, that was actually Rare's back on Nintendo 64 years ago. Forget about that comment. And Rare actually was the company that Miyamoto-san used to help design some of the Donkey Kong Country games, which were so ahead of its time. It ran on Nintendo 64, but it was supposed to be for the next generation, but it was just brilliant. And that's one of the reasons why you haven't seen that much Donkey Kong Country on or repurposing that content on some Nintendo platforms, because Microsoft sort of owns the IP for that kind of with Rare. And so that's what they did. That's what they did. They bought it and basically destroyed the company. Rare, that is, which is what happens when companies get acquired. If they're not allowed to run on their own, if they're integrated too quickly, then innovation dies. It's always what happens. Always. Almost always. And so the way that Nintendo competed with Microsoft was they continued to compete based on their awesome proprietary content. But also what they did was they realized, and I mentioned this when I spoke about my meeting with the CFO of Nintendo when I met with him in January 2006. What they did was they figured that, hey, we cannot compete based on hardware anymore. And so eventually they said, screw it. And they made the Wii, which was groundbreaking, as you all know. It was a new way to play. And we know that Nintendo likes to take a lot of risks. And when Nintendo has tried to kind of emulate the competition, they've had a bunch of missteps. And one big example of this was with the GameCube, which wasn't that successful. And there's a couple reasons why. Number one, they tried to compete by making discs. So the GameCube, which came out in 2002, came in this cute little disc. And they were trying to compete with Sony because and we'll talk about Sony in a minute, but Sony made huge inroads in the market because you can store a ton more, like 10 times more information on a disc than you can on a cartridge. And so Nintendo kind of chased them. And it was a big misstep. It didn't work out that well. There's a lot of misexecution with the GameCube. It was a cool product. It looked really cool. But they missed the boat. They missed the boat in terms of also getting access to online play at that point, which is what Microsoft pioneered. They really did, right? Because Microsoft's a software company, and they pioneered kind of Xbox Live, and everybody else kind of followed suit, which terrified Nintendo, terrified them. So they had to do something radically different, which was create the Wii. And I saw when Reggie, who's the president of Nintendo of America, and Miyamoto-san, when they launched the Wii in North America. It was, I think it was either the summer of 05 or 06. I think it was 05 actually, at the Kodak Theater in Los Angeles at the annual video game convention called E3. I went to that event because I'm an investor. And when they released the Wii there or showed it to us, we were shocked. It was awesome. It was awesome. And it was a scary time for Nintendo because Microsoft's got deep pockets. And Microsoft and Sony were trying to improve the architecture of their hardware so that they could actually sell really high quality video games relative to Nintendo's comic book look. And I remember it was at that E3 event at the Kodak Theater when Bill Gates was there, and he showed a demonstration of Gears of War, which was unbelievable. Great product, great product. And I remember that well because I was actually late for that event. And I wanted to get in, and they weren't allowing people through the front door in the Kodak Theater in LA. So what I did was I went to the back door, and I networked and used the tiny bit of charm I have to let a security guard walk me in through the back. And it was funny because when I walked in through the back, the security guard had his walkie-talkie, and all he heard on I heard in the walkie-talkie was one of his colleagues was yelling at him, saying, "Bill Gates is demanding his In-N-Out burger and Diet Coke right now." So anyway, I went in, I saw the presentation, I was blown away. And the hiring of Reggie, who heads up Nintendo of America, was a smart move too. He's very charismatic, very charismatic. Yeah. So anyway, that's how they compete with Microsoft. They competed not based on expensive hardware, which is a loss leader. They competed by making cheaper hardware that's profitable, by making a brand new user experience. But it was frightening for Nintendo because with Microsoft, again, they pioneered online, and it's something that Nintendo really missed. And so around that time, Nintendo created the DS as well, which did incredibly well for them, and they remained successful. See, anything else I need to talk about with Microsoft? I think that's it. Now, Microsoft has done a really poor job of creating amazing IP for their consoles. And as I mentioned before, if it weren't for Halo, which was a huge success, Microsoft probably wouldn't have made another Xbox. It's all about proprietary content, and software sells hardware and not the other way around. Okay. All right. Next up, what do we got? Aha. Oh, Sega's next. Sega. That's right. So Sega, which stands for Service Games, they entered the market late 80s, early 90s. And what they did was they realized that one of the weaknesses with Nintendo is that they didn't appeal to older gamers. And so what Sega did was they created this edgy character, faster moving character too, called Sonic, which we've all heard of. And they did extraordinarily well with that product, which terrified Nintendo. And so they started moving up into rated T, I should say, type gaming, which left Nintendo behind. And so what happened was Sega took a ton of market share away, and Sega did something very smart. So at that time in the late 80s, early 90s, the biggest push in marketing was something that Nike pioneered, which was signing endorsements with famous athletes. Of course, I have my Michael Jordan quote down here I always talk about. But Sega actually signed up Joe Namath, who was a very, very, I think it was Joe Namath. There was another quarterback, actually. It's killing me. I have to look. Mario Kart Mario Kart. That was the name of the game I forgot before. How could I forget that? My goodness. Let's see. San Francisco quarterback. Google will correct my spelling. 1990s. Is it Joe Namath? I feel like such a... Joe Montana. Yeah, Joe Montana. Yeah. And I played golf with Steve Bonner once. And I remember, I didn't know he was a famous footballer, but I played with him. And I kept saying, nice shot. Like my old business partner, who's a big owner of the San Francisco Giants, brought Bono. And after every shot, I would say to Bono, great shot, great shot. And after a while, I just shut the hell up because every shot was great. And then I realized he was a pro player. And I joked with him. He didn't laugh, but I joked that he looked like kind of an athletic, serious version of Will Ferrell at the time. Yeah. Anyway, so back to Joe Montana, as opposed to Joe Namath, who John Lennon sung about actually at the beginning of Come Together. But what happened was Sega signed up Joe Namath and a bunch of other Joe Montana. I made the mistake again, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm not on the ball today, but I do remember Mario Kart. Signed up Joe Montana to a contract, celebrity endorsement to sell the football game, American football game for them, which is how Nike did extraordinarily well with obviously with sports, with Bo Jackson and Michael Jordan at the time. And so by aligning themselves with athletes, what happened was Sega was able to create an amazing brand and take a lot of market share away from Nintendo, which terrified Nintendo. Nintendo doesn't really do celebrity endorsements as much. They just market their own IP through various channels. We talked about McDonald's, et cetera, before. And so eventually, the problem with Sega, one of the problems and the reason why Nintendo won is because people fail to realize the importance of software. They think it's all about the console. But what sells consoles, what sells hardware is software. And so eventually, Sega, they had a great 16-bit operating system called the Genesis, then 32-bit, and then a CD as well, which allowed them to store a lot more content, similar to what Sony did with PlayStation. But what happened was eventually Sega made this product called the Dreamcast, which I think was 64-bit. It was an awesome machine, but they had like no content for it, like a couple games like Crazy Taxi and maybe one Sonic game. And so the hardware didn't sell as well as expected because there just wasn't any games. And so Sega basically pulled the plug. And eventually what Sega did was they started making software for other consoles. And, you know, Sonic, it's a cool brand, but there's not much great character development there compared to Mario. And so they kind of, I don't know, like the quality isn't there. There's a lot of games that it's just kind of boring. I don't know. You run really fast for a little while. That's it. So Sega started making their games for different consoles, and they're kind of a rounding error now, you know, compared to what they were or what they could have been back in the 90s. And so the lesson there is that software sells hardware. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what happened with Sega. And now it's interesting because Mario and Sega are in games together now, like Olympic Games and all that stuff. So that's Sega. That's Sega. Oh, I was supposed to go to the top here. Oops, made a little mistake there. Go up here. That's okay. I've got a lot of extra men here. A lot of those little bells. Oof, that was a close call. All right. So next up, what we're going to talk about is Sony. And I did my thesis at business school, and I did my MBA at Columbia 8 billion years ago. I graduated in the year 2000. And I did my thesis actually on Sony. My research thesis when I was there. I majored in finance, but also did a ton of Japanese courses and stuff just to prepare me for Goldman when I worked in Japanese equities. And Sony was obviously we know how incredibly successful Sony has been over many decades. When I was younger, it was the de facto audio device we'd all carry around. You know, it was a Sony Walkman. And, you know, Sony certainly inspired Steve Jobs a lot to the extent that the iPod is what the Walkman should have been. You know, Sony missed the boat on that, but we're here to talk about video games in this lecture. Maybe we'll do a case study later on Sony. And one thing that's interesting though, is that a lot of Japanese companies, the brilliance is they make the hardware and then they try to control the software by changing the format as well, which is brilliant. And so Sony had a misstep with Beta, which was a smaller version of a VCR cassette. And then what's happened is with Nintendo and with Sony, they've changed the form factor of their cartridges, the software, many times over the years. And that is supposed to stop piracy and also to get you to, I don't know, get you locked into a new platform that they own. Now, in terms of piracy, it's always been a big issue in the video game sector. A little bit less so now because a lot of games are online and you play through Nintendo store and Sony store, whatever it is, and it's not too expensive to do a monthly subscription as well. A little off topic there, sorry. But Sony entered the market with the PlayStation, and the PlayStation was on compact discs and the discs and eventually DVDs and Blu-rays. And you can store literally 10 times more stuff on those discs than you can from cartridges. And so Sony started to release wonderful games with better graphics, with a lot more breadth and depth and a lot more information saved on those discs, which really, really hurt Nintendo in the 90s, up until they released the Wii, actually, and they reinvented themselves like they always do. But anyway, that's Sony in a nutshell. And Sony tried to compete in the handheld market as well. And they did really well for a while with a PlayStation Vita. And they had a slimmed down version as well. Sony likes to release really big products and then make them smaller. Like the PS5 is like huge. And eventually they'll make a slim version, which will look cool or whatever. They're a great hardware and software company. And it's part of my thesis on Sony. So Sony's always thought about hardware and software. And for them, software is so the hardware for them is a lot of the audio products they've sold in the past. And they've also sold, they also bought CBS Records, which is like software that runs on the audio product, so to speak, right? And so that's the business model that they've always had, which is why it was easy for them to consider getting into the gaming market. Now, what they did was actually kind of unethical. So they actually wanted to get in the video game market, and they partnered with Nintendo, and they made a console that they were working on making a console with Nintendo. And Nintendo trusted them. And then at the end, Nintendo decided maybe this doesn't make much sense. And then Sony basically used all the IP they developed to create their own product, right? So the lesson learned for Nintendo was DTA, don't trust anyone ever. Yeah, business is war, I guess. But Sony did incredibly well with the PlayStation. And the great thing about the PlayStation, I'll say, versus the Xbox, is the PlayStation has a lot of fantastic proprietary content, meaning games you can only play on the PlayStation. And the reason why I bought the PlayStation 2, for example, back, I think it was around 2002 or so, was because of Grand Theft Auto Vice City, which was exclusive at that point to the PlayStation. So if you don't have exclusive software, you won't sell hardware. Software sells hardware always. And even to this day, Sony has exclusive contracts with Major League Baseball for MLB The Show, I should say, and also with Naughty Dog Studios, which makes incredible games, including the Uncharted franchise, as well as The Last of Us. And I'm playing The Last of Us Part 2 right now, and I have to play with the lights on at night because it scares the hell out of me. But it's not easy to make a video game. Like if it was easy, then LucasArts would have done exceptionally well with their Indiana Jones franchise. But they couldn't do it. They missed the boat, which is what Uncharted became, Indiana Jones, but video games based. It's really, really hard to add character development to games as well. It's really, really complicated too. And there's a way to do it cost effectively as well. And so what Nintendo has done over the years is they've been very, very cheap, very cheap. They made cheaper hardware, as you know. They don't discount their software as much. But also in the early days with the music and the gorgeous sonic architecture of some of their songs. And what my favorite Nintendo song ever, which I play on the piano, is called Dire Dire Docks. Dire Dire Docks from Mario 64. But what Nintendo would do is some of the sounds that you hear in the early Nintendo games, they reverse the sound for example, when Hans Zimmer taught this master class, which I took on piano composition, and a couple notes going boo boo means something happy, but the reverse do is something sinister or a little more sad. And so what Nintendo did was they actually reversed those notes as well. So, and that's how they saved money in the early days on the 8 and 16-bit consoles. And what Nintendo also did as a way to save money is if you look at some of the older games, the clouds are the exact same shape as the bushes, but they're just different colors. So they've always been great at expense management, and they certainly underpay their employees as well. But it's a privilege to work there. You know, it's not a job, it's a passion. Okay, so Sony is still a force to reckon with, of course, but Nintendo runs circles around them when it comes to handhelds. And what Nintendo has done, they had a misstep with the Wii U, which was basically like an iPad, but not as cool. And it took forever to load games on it versus now where you can load games right away, which is what I love about the Switch. What I hate about the Xbox and the PlayStation is it takes 8 million years to load a new game or to play a game unless you leave it in sleep mode. With Nintendo, with cartridges, that's not the case at all. So anyway, what else can I say about Sony? So Nintendo beat them in the handheld market. Certainly, they've been a pioneer in this area. I don't think Sony even makes a handheld anymore. Yeah. And then what happened was this is a big gamble, but Nintendo, what they did was they basically got rid of this product. Like we still have the 3DS here. There's a lot of great games on it, and they're basically putting all their efforts into one device, the Switch, which is risky, but it's done incredibly well. So it's been a home run. I think what would make sense is to make a bigger version of the Switch now as well, as the cost for making LCD screens or whatever it is much, much cheaper now. They could easily clean up with that, kind of like they did when they made a larger DS or a larger 3DS as well. They could easily clean up with that because there is a market for larger form factor tablets, as iPad Pro has shown us. Yeah, and larger iPhones as well. So maybe that's the next step for them. Yeah. But they've done exceptionally well, and they put everything they got or they had on Nintendo into Mario Odyssey, which is a masterpiece. It's a good game. Yeah. All right, so we're done talking about Sony. Next up, we've got. See, I'm learning. I'm getting better. I put all these down here just in case. Yeah. All right. Next, what we'll do is we will talk about competition from mobile companies like Apple. That's the ticker for Apple, and Google. That's the old ticker for Google before it became Alphabet. And so when it comes to mobile, Nintendo's pretty scared about this. They know there's a chance that people are going to want to play more casual games on mobile handsets. And so that's one of the reasons why Nintendo allowed that other third party to create the Pokemon Go. And that's why there's Mario Kart. I remember the name now on the iPad and iPhone. It's only okay, as well as the one-handed Mario jump game as well. It's a hedge for them. They're testing the waters just to see, and it's great. It's brilliant branding for them as well. Brilliant branding, and it's still. I think it's $10 for the game still. I don't think they've discounted it like other games have. But we haven't really seen much innovation in handheld gaming, meaning iPhone or Google Store gaming. There's big antitrust issues with Apple as well, because they sell an Apple Arcade product now, and it's totally unfair. Other companies can't compete because of that. And then, of course, you probably all seen the headlines with Fortnite being booted from the iOS store and the Google Play Store as well. Yeah. So it is a risk. It is a big risk for them. They're monitoring closely. They continue to test the waters. And it's interesting whenever a product gets released by a Nintendo or a Nintendo entity for iOS, the stock spikes materially because short-sighted, short-term investors get excited and think, oh my gosh, Nintendo can sell their software on many different platforms. But that would be a foolish long-term decision to make. It would appease short-term oriented investors, but long-term investors and the management of Nintendo knows that they don't want to concede and give up the road, the platform, so to speak. They want to own that always. And Nintendo makes money anyway from their hardware. Yeah, but it is a big competitive threat. It certainly is. but Nintendo has weathered the storm quite well so far. Yeah. All right, so that's that. Other competitors. I have to try to kill one of these guys. Apparently you can go like this. Yeah. All right, let's go through the next Hyperloop, as Elon Musk would call it, I guess. All right, so next up, there's other software companies. Ooh, karma. Almost got me there. There's other software companies, and it's co-opetition actually, which means competition and cooperation. So the first one, let me kick it off with here is Activision, ticker ATVI, founded by a brilliant man, very funny man. I've met a number of times, named Bobby Kotick. And so Activision, you've all heard of, and they merged with Blizzard years ago because they wanted access to World of Warcraft. But Activision has a couple of great franchises, like Call of Duty, but they keep releasing the same kind of game every year. Yeah, it gets better graphics, but the problem is they have to keep discounting a lot. And so the profit margin structure from a software perspective for Nintendo is always going to be better than Activision from a software perspective. Yeah. But Activision, they always have to have a good relationship with them because Activision makes games that go on Nintendo's consoles as well. They make it for all major platforms as well. Yeah. So that is one competitor for them. Yeah. It's interesting though because Activision's headquarters is not in Northern California where all the tech companies are. It's in Southern California. And that's where the annual E3 video game convention is every year, usually every year. They don't have it as of this year because of COVID, but they will next year or the year after. And one of the reasons they're down there in Los Angeles is because that's where a lot of media companies are, right? Hollywood, obviously. Yeah. So. All right. So next up, we've got Take-Two. All right. So Take-Two is a company that basically has two games. I mean, they have more than two games, two franchises, I should say. One of them is called Grand Theft Auto, which is a wonderful open world concept game, which does incredibly well. They're supposed to release every 5 years. Now it looks like every 10 years or so. They do really well online as well. And if it weren't for Mario 64, I don't think that Take-Two would exist. TTWO is the ticker. They're the parent company of Rockstar Games, which makes Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. And they also make Red Dead Redemption. And they made part 1 and part 2, and they're great games as well. I love it. The problem with that business model is they only have 2 core franchises. And we know about the diversification discussion we talked about with respect to IP or intellectual property and characters from topic 1 today, that you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And Take-Two's got other games too, like Max Payne and Bully, etc., but nothing to the extent of how Grand Theft Auto does, which is a market that Nintendo doesn't really want to get into. Because it is rated R type games, and from a total addressable market perspective, you alienate younger players, etc. Yeah. So that's that product there. And they used to make the Grand Theft Auto products for the DS. It wasn't that great though. Wasn't that great. So Take-Two sticks primarily with higher graphics platforms like personal computers. As well as Xbox and PlayStation, which are basically computers. Yeah, high-end computers. That is. Yeah. Aside from that, let me see if there's anything else to talk about with respect to Take-Two. Yeah, they don't really have the best relationship with Activision, with Nintendo anyway. All right, so we talked about Activision, we talked about Take-Two. Next is EA Sports. It's in the game. That's what you said, right? I know what you said. So EA is a ticker for Electronic Arts. The ticker used to be ERTS, ERTS. They're based here in Redwood City, which is about a half hour south of where I'm right now. They're close to the Oracle headquarters. Oracle's a big database software company. And EA is, and let me just stop this Camtasia when I'm rendering in the background. For some reason, it wants to tell me, hey, I'm finished the job. Yeah. So EA used to be a wonderful company. I have a lot of friends that work there. I'm on the board with the CEO or one of the senior executives now on a charity. But one of the issues they've had is culture. It's a tough place to work, really, really tough. And they've had a lot of missteps. And I don't know how many versions of Madden, the football game, you can make every single year. It's kind of like Call of Duty. Eventually, you just can't innovate that much. And they have to discount their software a lot as well. And they stopped growing organically. So they started making acquisitions, like they bought Plants vs. Zombies. They also bought, what else did they buy? Oh, they bought Maxis, which is Will Wright's company. I met Will Wright, who's a rock star to me. And so Will Wright was the guy that created SimCity and The Sims as well. And Spore, which is a great experiment in a evolutionary game. Didn't do that well, but I loved it. What they did was, because Electronic Arts wasn't growing as much, they had to buy companies, and they integrated the companies. And you cannot integrate a company. Otherwise, you kill the corporate culture and innovation dies. And they stopped making SimCity games, which breaks my heart because I love SimCity. And that's how I taught you guys about bonds earlier as well. And that's how I learned about bonds as well in business as a kid in the 80s, was playing SimCity Gen 1 on my old Mac in black and white. But what happened is they destroyed the franchise. They released SimCity in 2013, and you could only play online. It was slow. And yeah, anyway, a little bit disastrous. But EA is an important partner for Nintendo. They make a broad array of sports games as well, as you know, which many of which make onto the Nintendo platform. Yeah, so it's more of a software company. All right, and then next up, we've got at the bottom, ran out of room. What company is that? It's Tencent, and they're now their parent company, which also owns a 40% stake in Epic, or the parent company is called Tencent. Sorry, but they own 40% in Epic, which is the brand behind Fortnite, and that is the largest, as of now, largest market cap company in the world for video games. They're massive. They do have a partnership with Nintendo. Fortnite is available on the Switch. And it's cross-platform as well. I mean, you can play against your buddies in different platforms. My kids do that as well. So that's another company. And speaking of Activision Blizzard, so I did a lot of work on video gaming in China. And so the last time I was there to meet with Shonda and the Nine and other Chinese companies, and I went to Seoul as well, South Korea, to meet with video game companies there. The last time I was there, I think it was in early 06. And I remember I met in Shanghai. And Shanghai is amazing, man. It's like Blade Runner. Like, Shanghai is basically, if you took New York City and you said, you know what, New York is cool, but let's take every building off and let's create it again so it just kind of, I don't know, works better. That's Shanghai. It's unbelievable, except for the pollution. But when I was there, I remember I met with the CFO of the Nine, a woman from Canada actually named Hannah. And I met with the founders and CEO of Shonda, ticker SND, I think, yeah. I didn't meet with Tencent. And I remember asking them, why is it that PC gaming is huge in China, but not huge in America? And I was trying to understand just the sector better. And what they told me was fascinating. They said that in China, up until then, there was a policy of only one child per family. And so in North America, after dinner, you play with your brothers and sisters in the backyard or something. In China, at that point, after dinner, if you're an only child, you don't have any brothers and sisters to play with. And so the way you socialize is online through gaming. And Warcraft was massive, World of Warcraft, which is why Activision kind of merged with them. Activision Blizzard, yeah. In terms of where to document competition within your business plan, as well as the presentation slides and Excel, it's pretty self-explanatory. Just do a search on the word competition, and it comes up a lot. And so I gave you a ton of places here to think about how to document all of your competitors, what the strengths and weaknesses are of all of your competitors, kind of like we talked about the SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses, the first two letters in SWOT. All your biggest competitors, strengths, weaknesses, et cetera, et cetera. And then by the same token, you go over here to PowerPoint. And then you can do a search, of course, for competition. And then here, it comes up on slide number 9. And then you can just grab it directly from within the Excel document to get all the competition tags. So if we go back here to Microsoft Word, let me just pick a sample one here. Okay. So I'm going to copy, and I have to get rid of that space at the end there. And if we go here and we paste it in, oh, it didn't take the space. Okay, good. And hit enter. It comes up many places. You can do a search for the word competition. It comes up here many places. Up here in, get in the ring. Up the competition inputs here. It's all over this tab here, which is called step 7. Okay. All right. Let me see what is next. I think I go down here, right? All right, I think we're almost done. Topic 2 here. Yeah. What is this here? Oh, yeah, that's just in case. Just in case. All right. Yeah. All right, this here is just a little warp. I'm a lazy game developer. I stop right there. All right, so here we go. That's it.
We're done with the topic number 2.
Please let me know if you have any questions. All right, we finally made it to topic 3. Now we can go into the castle, I guess. Yeah. Apparently this is how these worlds end. All right, so this is Economics Management Strategy, Semester 3, Class 1, topic number 3. A long class, but a fun one. All right, so we're going to talk about finance now and leverage in the model. So that's a lever. I put that there on purpose because the beauty of Nintendo's business model is that there's a lot of leverage. And let me make it here without dying. Don't die. Whoa. Okay, good. I'll come down to that bottom part a little bit later. Can I jump high on this? There we go. Good. Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about leverage in the model for Nintendo. And with respect to fixed overhead and me buying time and trying to jump up on there. Dude, I don't think this button's working that well. Okay, here we go. Okay, so what we're gonna do is, let me get up here. Oh my God, this is killing me. I'm so sorry. Sort of. It is fun though, to be honest, yeah. So we're in Bowser's Castle. And I'm gonna go in here so I can talk about leverage in the model. Here I go. Okay. All right, yeah. So we're going to talk about the income statement now. So the beauty of Nintendo's business model, and I got smart here with one of these things so I can fly around and show you stuff, or less stupid, I should say. So at the top of the income statement, we have revenue. And we know that. That's how an income statement works. And so I'm going to create a very simple income statement, or just show you quickly, so you can understand leverage in the model, hence the teeter-totter for Nintendo. So with this income statement, I just have a couple line items. The first one is revenue, which is $100. Okay. And then we've got only one expense item here, which is, oh my goodness, it's not letting me go over here. Okay. Which look at the bottom there. It's R&D. Okay. So R&D is $20. And so if we have revenue of 100 minus R&D of $20, that means, let me get out of this guy here. That means we've got net income, NI here, of $80. And it's important for me to talk about this with respect to Nintendo because the beauty of their business model is, as I mentioned before, they can repurpose content. And they repurpose content because they only spend money once on R&D. Okay, so for each new product they make, they only have to make it one time. Then they port the code to different consoles or different platforms of their own, meaning future gen consoles, next gen. And so if they only pay R&D one time, then that drops to the bottom line. It's a lot of leverage in the model. So if they spend $20 to make, let's say, a new Zelda title, okay, that's Link, but a Zelda title, then they never have to spend that money again on future consoles. It drops right to the bottom line. So the first time they make it, let's say it's $100 they have in revenue, and the only expense for fun here is $20 in R&D. That means their net income is $80. So that means that their profit margins here is 80% in this hypothetical example. But their profit margins are actually 100% on next-gen consoles when it comes to that one Zelda title. because this Zelda title, we'll just pretend it's Ocarina of Time, great game on the N64. This Zelda title, they had to spend money on R&D, $20 for example, back in 1996 when it came out on the Nintendo 64, which is I think in this image here. And then they never have to spend any money on it again, basically, maybe a little bit of money just to port the code. And then they can re-release that Zelda title here directly onto future consoles. For example, the Wii or I guess the Switch, which is what I'm using right now. So that's a beautiful thing. There's fantastic leverage in the model. And there's two ways to increase your profit margin. Profit margin, we know, means net income, which is this bottom line here, which is 80 in this hypothetical example. Profit margin means net income divided by revenue, which we have all the way at the top. So there's two ways to increase your profit margin. In this case, the profit margin in this hypothetical example is 80%, because 80 divided by 100, which is your revenue, is equal to 80%, which is up here at the top. So there's two ways to increase your profit margins. Oh my God, did I make it? I almost did. There's two ways. One way is by increasing revenue, okay, which is at the top here, right here. Yeah, right here, okay. Another way is by decreasing expenses. And that leads to leverage in the model because small changes leads to a big change in profitability. And so, again, there's two ways to increase profit margins. One way is to grow revenue. Another way is to not spend as much on expenses or cut expenses. Okay. And so when companies are worried that they're going to miss a quarter, what they usually do in the last couple weeks of a quarter is you can't manufacture revenue. It's hard to get more revenue at the last second, but they can make earnings. So they can miss revenue, companies in general, but earnings quite often they don't miss because they just say in the last 2 weeks of a quarter before they report earnings, in the last 2 weeks, we're going to cut expenses. There's no more travel allowed for the last 2 weeks, for example. Okay. So the way, I guess I died. Oh, I didn't realize that. But how did I die? I don't remember putting any bad guys here. No, it is what it is, whatever. Maybe I fell on lava somewhere. The ground is hot lava. Remember that. There's two ways to increase profit margins. One is increasing revenue, which is your top line. And they call it that because that's the top, like the top of this level here. The top of your income statement is the top line. And the other way is by cutting expenses. Expenses, yeah. So anyway, and I mentioned that if you're at the end of a quarter and you think you're going to miss earnings, you can cut expenses. It's easy to do. A lot of companies do it. But more often than not, companies miss revenue more so than earnings because it's hard to sell something last second when you're under the gun. And sometimes what people do is they actually call up clients, salespeople at big companies, and they say, hey, I'm going to miss my numbers. Can you help me out? And that's totally fine. And so what will happen is they'll sell a product to a customer today that they were going to sell in the future. But what happens though is you're kind of robbing from the future. And the way to understand if a company's going to miss their next quarter is to look at deferred revenue. Okay. So if I was going to get revenue from a customer next quarter, and I kind of signed the contract already for it, but I haven't delivered the product to them, then that would be called deferred revenue. And that's a liability on the balance sheet. So I can always tell what a pipeline looks like for a company in terms of revenue for the next quarter by looking at deferred revenue, right? And again, that means revenue that you booked and somebody agreed to, but you haven't actually given them the product yet. So you can't recognize that revenue until you've given them the product. So it's deferred revenue. And deferred revenue, it's on the balance sheet. And when companies report earnings, what they do is they tell you what their revenue and earnings are for the quarter, right? But I like to look at another metric, which is called bookings. And bookings is calculated as follows. Revenue plus the change in deferred revenue from last balance sheet to this balance sheet. And that tells you how great the pipeline looks. So again, bookings is defined as revenue, which you get from the income statement this quarter. Bookings is revenue plus the change in deferred revenue on this current balance sheet and the previous balance sheet. Okay. So if deferred revenue goes down on your balance sheet a lot this quarter versus last quarter, that means that there's less revenue in the pipeline. Okay. So it's another thing to look out for in general. But Nintendo has a lot of leverage in their model because they don't have to actually recreate those older titles they already made. Please make it crisp, please. Please don't be ugly. Please don't be ugly. Okay, I'm gonna try and make this. I swear to you, the button's not. It's supposed to jump higher. It doesn't all the time. Okay. Okay. User error. That's what you're thinking. But it's actually look. You can look here. It's not always jumping higher. Okay. It's killing me. It's killing me. But I will make it here, and we'll go back here because we're almost done with this. There's not much left here. All right, so we talked about the income statement, and the ground is hot lava. So let me move over here. And we talked about leverage in the model. That's the top line revenue. And that one expense item we have in this hypothetical example is just R&D. In terms of documenting the financial leverage in your model, of course, we'll kick it off with the financials within Excel. So we click here on the financial inputs. And the best way to think about it, as I mentioned a minute ago, is the best way to increase your margins is to either increase revenue or cut expenses, or make revenue grow way faster than expenses. And of course, the way to forecast revenue is right here on revenue line 1 and 2 if you have a couple of revenue line items. And then in terms of expenses, of course, you just scroll down and eventually you'll get to expenses. And just make sure you take a look at the percent of revenue, what each expense line item is, and ensure that longer term, as a percent of revenue, each expense line item becomes a smaller percent of revenue. And then what will happen is you'll see beautiful leverage kick in the model. And that will show up here if you go here to your income statement, and then you can look here at what your margins are. Okay. And so the margins appear right here. There's a couple different ways to look at it. There's EBITDA margins, which is operating profit margins. And then we've also got gross margins as well, right here. And then in terms of how that shows up in your final business plan, we know that if we go to here, the final business plan for the outputs of everything, what it's going to look like, we can always scroll down to the financial section. Let me just get more real estate here. And they're right here. Okay, so here's all your financial ratios, which encompasses or incorporates, I clicked the wrong one. I think I might have. Maybe it's up here. Hold on a second. Yeah. All right, hold on a second. All right, so let me just expand these items here to find. Here we go. Good. Okay. So your financial ratios. Here's the roadmap. What all that stuff means. All the different margins here, and it shows up here. And of course, if you put data in, it's going to update automatically here, as well as on the Home tab. And let me just open up every single one of these here, so I can click on Home again. There it is. Performance, I'm pleased with it actually. And then you just scroll down here, and that also appears on this one-page snapshot down here. Your margins as well, your gross margins, operating margins, net profit margins here. Now, when it comes to, I guess let's do PowerPoint next. When it comes to PowerPoint, I've got a couple of places where you put in your financials here. You might have a couple revenue and expense line items, as well as just basic margins as well. And so we can copy these and go back into Excel hell to see where that came from. So we go here, back one space. I don't have a trailing space there. And it shows up here. Now, in terms of where to put this in the Microsoft Word document, meaning your business plan, do I even have it here? Let's see if I go here. Line 1. I guess I don't. So just do a search on the word. Oh, it's the wrong one. Financials, and tons of them should come up. Financials. Yeah, there's tons. Okay, yeah. And so right here in the financial section, we have just revenue and net income lines. And then down here, there's financial ratios. And here's where your margins will appear here in your business plan. All right. And I don't think there's anything down here. Yeah. Yeah, there's no Goombas here or bad guys. So, and the purpose of this graphic here was to talk about how, in general, and I've already talked about this, how video game companies or consoles, there's no innovation. They all still look like this, right? This is Microsoft. This is the 360 version, although it looks like Xbox One. And this is the PlayStation 4, but it kind of looks like PlayStation 3 a little bit. I'm very proud of myself for that art, by the way. Yeah, but Nintendo actually created this concept here, and everybody copied them with the 8-bit or the 16-bit version of NES. All right, so we don't have much left here. So I'm going to go down here. Here we go. Aha! Oh, dude, this is brutal. All right, this is where I wish I gave myself a mushroom. I have to focus here and concentrate. I'm supposed to be teaching, but I've got to. Oh my god! I've got a game. I think I'm allowed to start right here. Am I? Oh my god, it's killing me. Okay, high speed mode again. Really high speed to get us back there. All right, here I am. We're almost done. We're almost at the crescendo. Oh my god. Okay, Matt, keep recording, but just don't do high speed. Just respawn. That's one thing Xbox has done a great job at, is respawning. Okay, that whole Halo concept, respawning, works great. But Matt, just right now, boom, go back to where I was. Thanks. All right, all I gotta do is make it right over to this guy. Yes! In your face, Bowser. All right, cool. Next thing I want to talk about is culture. Okay. And so I'm supposed to jump on these things. I'm too scared to, but Nintendo has a very distinct culture where nobody has a job there. Everyone's got a passion. And that's why one of the many reasons why they're so successful. And as I mentioned, look at that dope down there. As I mentioned, Nintendo's profitability per employee is insane. If you take the number of employees divided by profits, it's usually over $1 million. It's unbelievable. Right, and it's got a really distinct culture, a culture of passion for gaming, obviously, and I need this badly. I need this, please, because I think Bowser's coming up. Okay, oh God, please, no. I can't go on with my life. I don't get this. Okay, I'm gonna have to wing it here. Okay, and there's a focus on quality. Okay, hold on. Quality over quantity. Yes, they released fewer games that are very high quality, unlike Sonic with Sega, which certainly overdid it, right? Especially with the Mario games, which come every... Dude, checkpoint! Excellent. Okay, that's dope. Let's go. I got a checkpoint. Good. I'm getting better at designing this a little bit. But, oh, dude, this guy scares the crap out of me. All right, well, I got to get this, but I don't care if I die because hey man, I got a checkpoint. You can't touch me. Okay, I'm okay. I'd usually freak out at this point, but that's okay. You got to be unemotional in business. Remember, I told you that. And if there was a Twitch for idiots, I would probably do extraordinarily well on Twitch. All right, so yeah, they focus on quality and not quantity. They don't, oh, that was a close call. They don't pump out tons of games, right? So less is more. All right, how am I going to do this? Okay. Yes, there's two more things I got to talk about. Can I talk about it without getting... Oh my God. That was accidental, but that's okay. That's okay, because crisis becomes opportunity. And with that crisis, I can get this thing here. Oh my God. Am I really that dumb? Okay. I'm going to purposely run into Bowser. Okay. How you doing, Bowser? All right. Two more quick things I want to talk about, and then we are done with having fun. Okay, so here. Get it. Good. Okay, great. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So it's an art. That's what Nintendo has turned video games into. It's an amazing art form. And what they've done, actually, it's interesting, is all they've done, not all they've done, but from a story perspective, and those fireballs are scaring the crap out of me, what they've done is they basically took Popeye. That's it. And Miyamoto-san saw that movie with Popeye with Robin Williams. God bless him. I wish he was with us still, but he's not. There's a movie with Popeye and Olive Oil. And I was in the third grade. I remember talking to my buddies at school after I saw it. I loved it. And so that movie inspired Miyamoto-san from an artistic perspective to make the Donkey Kong game. And Popeye basically is Mario. And instead of eating spinach, he eats mushrooms to get big. And then Olive Oil is the princess. And Bluto, who's that mean dude with the beard, is Donkey Kong. He's Donkey Kong. And it worked also exceptionally well for King Kong. And Universal actually sued the pants off of Nintendo because Nintendo using King Kong, or Donkey Kong, I should say. And then Nintendo countersued and beat them. It was awesome. Awesome. I don't like lawyers. Okay. So that's it. It's an arts. I am going to go over here and I'm going to, okay, Bowser, I apparently you have to get, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. In your face, Bowser. I got you. Okay, good. Great. Bowser always falls for that trick. Okay. All right. Oh, I guess that's it, man. It's bittersweet. More bitter than sweet, though. It's over. Yeah. So the world is clear. Excellent. So I really hope you enjoyed this.
We are done with topic number 3.
Please let me know if you have any questions.